wealth junkies are ruining America. What can we do about it? Or my headline was, are billionaires simply money addicts like Scrooge McDuck? And, you know, the point that I'm making, we've got all these Republicans who are just going out of their way to screw working class people. In Ohio, you know, there's a ballot measure to the minimum wage in Ohio is $10.54 or 45 cents an hour. There's a ballot measure that people are trying to get on the ballot in Ohio. They need 400,000+ signatures, and it would raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour in over a 2-year period. The Republicans have come out and said, well, and that would include tipped workers, by the way. So the Republicans have come out with their own version, which was, it turns out, written by the restaurant industry, that says that, yeah, we'll raise the minimum wage to $15, but it's going to take 4 years, and it doesn't include tipped workers. Tipped workers only go to $7.50 an hour. Bernie Moreno, the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate against Sherrod Brown in Ohio, was recently forced by a court to pay $400,000 in wages that he had stolen. I mean, he was literally convicted of wage theft, stolen from employees at his used car business. And he says he doesn't think there should be any minimum wage at all. In Florida, Ron DeSantis just signed a bill into law, a Republican bill that forbids cities in the state from mandating that employers provide outdoor workers with heat protections, including water. Again, the legislation written by agricultural industry lobbyists. It also scales back child labor protections and forbids cities from instituting their own safeguards for children in the workplace. In Iowa, a Republican majority wiped out public employees' right to collectively bargain. You know, it was signed by that state's Republican governor with a new twist, mimicking a rule that DeSantis put into place in Florida, making it illegal for the state to automatically deduct union wages, union dues, from state workers' paychecks. These efforts are just the tiniest tip of the iceberg. Anti-worker legislation, tax cuts, I mean, all this stuff is just happening all over the country, which raises the question, why? Is it that Republicans just hate working class people? Is it they think that working class people just aren't worthy and therefore, you know, it's okay to just exploit them? I think, you know, if you look at what's going on, basically the billionaires in America, or the majority of the billionaires in America, own the GOP. And the businesses in America own the GOP. Republican politicians, I mean, basically this is the deal they made. The Democratic Party has been the party of labor since the 1930s. You know, when Franklin Roosevelt legalized unions in 1933 with the Wagner Act, the National Labor Relations Act, and have been ever since. And as Harry Truman famously said, you know, the Republican Party is the party of wealth and privilege, always has been and always will be. Well, it hasn't always been. I mean, there was about a 15-year period there when they were actually the party of you know, bringing together white and black people. This was the party of Abraham Lincoln. That all went to hell in 1876 when Sam Tilden was elected president, or was given the presidency by Congress, actually. Rutherford B. Hayes was elected president. Sam Tilden actually won that election, but Hayes became, the Republican Hayes, the Democrat Tilden, the Republican Hayes became president. Because of that deal to stab black people in the back, you know, to end Reconstruction in 1876. Since 1876, the GOP has been the party of big business and billionaires, right straight through. So what's going on here? Well, science shows that acquiring wealth stimulates the pleasure and reward circuits in the brain's ventromedial prefrontal cortex, just behind the eyes, that part of the brain. Studies of mapped blood flow and electrical activity show that even anticipating money lights up this region, which is the same response that you get to anticipating sex or anticipating food. So, you know, I remember this was, I think 2 years ago, a woman called into the program. I was talking about wealth at the time, and she called in and she said that she had always been kind of a paycheck to paycheck person. But she had had a recent life circumstance that meant that she was no longer financially insecure. I don't recall what it was. I think she might have gotten an inheritance. But now she has more money than she needs. And she said, and I find myself checking my bank balance every day. I never did that before. And it's like this kind of Scrooge McDuck phenomena. She seemed troubled by this. And you know, probably because, you know, Jesus was pretty explicit. You know, he said, you know, the rich man came to Jesus and said, what do I do to get into heaven? And he said, sell everything you own, and give the money to the poor. And then, you can join me in heaven. And the guy said, screw that. So, not exactly a billionaire or CEO's mantra, right? So what I'm arguing is that the morbidly rich in our country are constantly seeking this dopamine rush that you get from adding another $1 million or another $1 billion to your checking account. And that they're willing to destroy American democracy, and they're willing to destroy the American middle class in order to get that dopamine rush. Now, we have a word for this. When, people use heroin, for example, or cocaine or methamphetamine, they very often end up destroying their own families because they're just, or alcohol. Alcohol is another one. These people are addicts. And dopamine is the indirect drug. I mean, all of these drugs produce dopamine rushes. And it's an addiction. And now that 5 corrupt Republicans on the Supreme Court have legalized political bribery, these billionaires have just been reaching out to the Republicans and saying, make us richer, make us richer, make us richer, and we'll keep you in power. So what do we do about this? Well, from the 1930s to the 1980s, we used a top income tax bracket of between 74 and 90% to keep the wealth junkies from damaging the rest of us. It was sort of like giving a heroin addict methadone. You can have money, you can be rich, but you can't have so much money that you can blast yourself into outer space on penis-shaped rockets and buy, multiple 500-foot yachts. You can be rich, you can be really rich, but not, over the top rich. And of course, Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush and Donald Trump did away with those things, and that's why we're $35 trillion in debt, was because of these 3 tax breaks or tax cuts. So what I'm saying is, if we want to stop the damage that these wealth addicts are doing to America, the way that we need to do that is by bringing back that top 74% income tax bracket on money earned over $5 million a year, and reverse Citizens United, end legal bribery of politicians in America. I think it's pretty straightforward stuff. We have, the Reagan administration and the Reagan Revolution and the Supreme Court, following on from that, basically gave billionaires the power to have all the junk they want, right? And I mean, like junkies, right? It's like saying to a heroin addict, here's a kilo of heroin, enough to last your lifetime. Have fun. This is what the Supreme Court did, and we need to reverse it. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1 hour. Hey, it's $5 Friday. You know that time when we ask you if you will become, please, a sustaining member, a regular monthly contributor to Free Speech TV with as little as $5. It can be 10, it can be 15, it can be 50, but we call it $5 Friday because the entry level is real straightforward, very simple. $5 a month. And all you have to do is just call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org and plug it in and just say, yeah, I want to support Free Speech TV. These $5 Fridays, these donations, your donation, is an investment, really, in Free Speech TV. And Free Speech TV is an investment in our democracy. It's an investment in the future of democracy. For you, for your kids, for your kids' kids. Free Speech TV is here for you, fighting for your right to vote, your right to breathe clean air and drink clean water, our right to choose, women's right to choose abortion, and for that matter, birth control. I mean, that's increasingly under assault. At Free Speech TV, you expect to hear smart conversations. You expect to get the truth, and you do. Analysis, multiple perspectives, it's all here. And it's all here thanks to your financial support. So while you're calling Free Speech TV or while you're going to freespeech.org and clicking the donate button and making your $5 Friday contribution, here's a clip from John Kennedy's final farewell address, or not farewell address, his final address to the United Nations General Assembly. Check it out.
The long shadows of conflict and crisis envelop us still. But we meet today in an atmosphere of rising hope and at a moment of comparative calm. My presence here today is not a sign of crisis, but of confidence. I am not here to report on a new threat to the peace or new signs of war. I have come to salute the United Nations and to show the support of the American people for your daily deliberations. For the value of this body's weapon, the reduction of global tension must not be an excuse for the narrow pursuit of self-interest. If the Soviet Union and the United States, with all of their global interests and clashing commitments of ideology, and with nuclear weapons still aimed at each other today, can find areas of common interest and agreement, then surely other nations can do the same. Nations caught in regional conflicts, in racial issues, or in the death throes of old colonialism. Chronic disputes which divert precious resources from the needs of the people or drain the energies of both sides serve the interests of no one. And the badge of responsibility in the modern world is a willingness to seek peaceful solutions. It is never too early to try, and it's never too late to talk. And the United States, as a major nuclear power, does have a special responsibility to the world. It is, in fact, a threefold responsibility. A responsibility to our own citizens, a responsibility to the people of the whole world who are affected by our decisions, and to the next generation of humanity. We believe the Soviet Union also has these special responsibilities, and that those responsibilities require our two nations to concentrate less on our differences and more on the means of resolving them peacefully. For too long, both of us have increased our military budgets, our nuclear stockpiles, and our capacity to destroy all life on this hemisphere, human, animal, vegetable, without any corresponding increase in our security. Our conflicts, to be sure, are real. Our concepts of the world are different. No service is performed by failing to make clear our disagreements. A central difference is the belief of the American people in self-determination for all people. We believe that the people of Germany and Berlin must be free to reunite their capital and their country. We believe that the people of Cuba must be free to secure the fruits of the revolution that have been betrayed from within and exploited from without. Protection of freedom. And our determination to safeguard that freedom will measure up to any threat or challenge. But I would say to the leaders of the Soviet Union and to their people that if either of our countries is to be fully secure, we need a much better weapon than the H-bomb, a weapon better than ballistic missiles or nuclear submarines, and that better weapon is peaceful cooperation.
One of our great presidents, great Democratic presidents for that matter. But again, $5 Friday, we need your help, we need it now, and it helps keep Free Speech TV going. So as little as $5 a month, please become a sustaining member today.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, happy Friday, TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak. It is the end of the week, and next week is the DNC. I'll be broadcasting live from Chicago, and you know, it's going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. This is such an amazing and fascinating and frankly uplifting time in American history. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have completely turned the race around. And frankly, I think, they've completely turned around kind of the psyche of Americans, and to good effect. So I'm looking forward to it, and and I hope you are too. We're going to have some good programming. Got a lot to talk about today. Vice President Harris pledges to fight poverty, to help home buyers. And what happens if Trump spirals out of control? Oh, and Mpox, used to be called monkeypox, is dangerously evolving and is now has spread to a bunch of African countries and now is in Sweden. And so we'll get into that in just a minute here in the first hour. Also, my op-ed today at HartmannReport.com, are the morbidly rich sabotaging the very system that made them wealthy? The answer, of course, is yes. The second hour of our program, can the right wing, is it all that they can do is insult? I mean, is that all they've got, really? I just find it amazing, when I post things on this Nazi-infested website, X, that Elon has, or Elmo, or whatever his name is, has just ruined. And the right wing, the vitriol, the just hate. No policy, no ideas, no suggestions, no, hey, let's improve America, just hate. It's breathtaking. And can't they just let people be who they are and debate policy? We'll get to that in the second hour of the program. Also, Tony Carrick is going to drop by in our second hour. The White House has announced Medicare's negotiated drug prices. And back to the first hour and the third hour, while Trump calls universal health care a communist system, it is really about regulated capitalism. Just look at the rest of the world. So we've got a lot to talk about today. And of course, it's Anything Goes Friday, whatever's on your mind. So just to start out with kind of a news recap. Who's J.D. Vance insulting today? Turns out today, spin the wheel, it's Irish Americans. Yep, he went off on this. Now, this was not today that he did this, to give him some small amount of credit. This was back in 2021 when he was running for the Senate. But he was on this podcast with this very weird dude. He's got this beard, his name is Jack Murphy, or at least that's the name he goes by. His real name is, hang on, I'll get to it. His real name is Jack Goldman. And he's got this huge beard that's all dyed right down the front, kind of like Hitler mustache style, And Jack Murphy, it turns out, has an interesting background. He has a blog, a right-wing blog, in which he writes the verbatim quote, Assad is a deep desire to be dominated and even degraded. And then he goes on to say, rape is the best therapy for the problem. Feminists need rape. Then he goes on to say, I can see thrashing from a mile away. This is sweet, guys. So this guy that J.D. Vance went on the air with, the guy who says feminists need to be raped. And he said, you had the J.D. Vance, you had this massive wave of Italian, Irish, German immigration, and that had its problems. You had higher crimes, you had these ethnic plagues, you had inter-ethnic conflict in a country that you really... We'd never had inter-ethnic conflict, like killing all the Native Americans, or as many as possibly could, the largest genocide in the history of the world, kidnapping and bringing into the United States enslaved Africans and keeping them in slavery for 300 years, 400 years, and then throwing them into a African-style apartheid 100 years. Problems, right? Other than the Irish. Look out for the Irish. Oh, man. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris promises that she's going to do some big things. Today is the day that they released the rest of it's coming out today. She wants to eliminate medical debt for millions of Americans. She wants to ban price gouging of food and groceries. She wants to cap the price of insulin and other prescriptions. And she wants to grant a $6,000 tax credit for newborn children in their first year, infantilism, or there's a word for that, people who have a fetish for babies, but whatever. She also wants to give first-time home who have paid their rent on time for 2 years a $25,000 boost for their down payment. Wow. She also is supporting Lena Khan over at the Federal Trade Commission, who's talking about breaking up. This is why we're being ripped off. These monopolies control entire industries, and so they get to set prices without competition, just violating the basic rule of capitalism. Tim Walz, of course, put into place one of the most generous tax credit plans in the country, free school meals and paid family leave. But to housing, this is a BFD. Vice President Harris says she has a 4-year housing plan that would promote the construction of 3 million new housing units, provide substantial down payment aid to first-time home buyers. I just mentioned that, $25,000. And you know how the price of rent has just exploded in the United States in the last 10 years. And the reason why is because, back in 2009, Citibank came out with this white paper about how the Wall Street should get into the housing industry, and they did. They jumped in with both feet. Just 32 institutional investors, big corporations and hedge funds, own over almost 500,000 single-family homes across the United States. 5 large investors own 300,000. And they use AI technology to figure out how high they can jack prices. And so she is proposing legislation to crack down on them by doing away with their tax break for being landlords. And I think this is just great. I mean, she's going to get a lot of crap for this, but I think it's just great. And we need to be paying attention to this. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is self-destructing. The people around him are freaked out. One campaign insider speaking to the Daily Mail said that they think he's been in self-destructive mode since Joe Biden dropped out. They also think that he is choosing to lose, and that he's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, after his assassination attempt. The guy's 78. Apparently, he's obsessively watching footage of the moment he was shot over and over and over again. There's something wrong with this guy. Frank Luntz has come out and said that Trump is, quote, committing political suicide. He says entire voting blocks have collapsed toward Harris, causing a major shift in the campaign. It's as though he has lost control, said Luntz to CNBC's Squawk Box. He said, I know that there are billionaires who watch this show who are spending a lot of money on Donald Trump, and they don't understand why he's committing political suicide. He's mentally ill. I mean, we've known that for a long time. It was kind of a novelty back in 2016. We were over it by 2020. That's why we voted to kick the bum out. And he's gonna lose terribly this time around, and he's going to take the GOP with him. The question in my mind is what's going to happen to the GOP afterwards. But we'll talk about that another time. And finally, the last story here before I get to my op-ed is Mpox has now shown up in Sweden. There's a new variation, a new strain. This virus mutates just like COVID mutates, just like the flu mutates. It has so far spread to Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda, and is endemic in the, or near endemic in the, or epidemic rather, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC. The DRC has recorded 15,664 potential cases, 548 deaths. This is a disease that gives you kind of COVID-like symptoms, fatigue, wild headaches, high fevers, but then you get these pustules that erupt all over your body, pus-filled blisters. Like chickenpox, only worse. And the virus was discovered in 1958 in Denmark in monkeys kept for research. And then in humans, it was first discovered in 1970 in the DRC. It's passed through close physical contact, like shaking hands with somebody. It also causes muscle aches. So the U.S. Department of Health is donating 50,000 doses to the DRC. But now that this thing has spread to Europe, Europe is on alert. Now, I don't think this is going to, I mean, this may well go worldwide. In fact, probably will. But I don't think it's going to be as bad or as frightening as COVID, because number one, it's harder to transmit. And number two, we've got a vaccine for it already. We didn't have a vaccine for COVID during the first year. So it's going to, which means that the impact, of course, is going to be far worse in poor countries, which is a tragedy. But that said, for those of us living in the first world, as it were, I think we'll probably be able to deal with it in a way that won't freak us all out. It's 16 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Are the morbidly rich sabotaging the very system that made them wealthy? I'll tell you about that right after the break. And welcome back. Dee in Seattle. Hey, Dee. Thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind?
Yeah, on Democracy Now!, I had never heard this, but the Israeli military is using three things, Amazon Cloud, Microsoft, and Google AI tools on the war in Gaza. I had never heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, I had heard about AI. I didn't know the specifics of it. Wow. Do you know what they're using them for?
No, they didn't explain that. I was wondering if you knew when Ireland's bad Irish and all that, and those other countries like Norway went to The Hague, is any of these have no enforcement group at all?
Do you know, I don't recall if the International Criminal Court has issued a warrant for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu. I believe they did, but I could be wrong. Do you know for sure?
No, but I remember someone saying, I think it was on a European, like France 24 News or something, they said that, and I remember Pompeo making a joke about something in the past about The Hague, and none of them seemed to have an enforcement. They said the problem was they didn't have an enforcement agency.
Well, they don't have a specific agency. I don't recall if they've issued a warrant for him. I know that they have. Somebody affiliated with that organization has said that they believe that he has committed war crimes. But here's how it works. The ICC issues an arrest warrant. A country which is a signatory to the ICC, which is not the United States or Russia, by the way. George W. Bush pulled us out of that because they were talking about throwing him in jail for war crimes. But anyhow, a country that is a signatory to the ICC, if, let's say Netanyahu actually has a warrant issued against him, and probably somebody who's listening knows and has been paying attention and will call in and set me straight on this. If he then goes to an ICC signatory country, they don't have to, but they can arrest him and then transport him to The Hague, where he's put in jail and a trial is held. That's what happened with Slobodan Milosevic and Radovan Karadzic, for example, for the Serbian war crimes. So that's how it works. But they don't have their own like police force. I mean, outside of just right there in The Hague for holding people, they don't have a force that can like Interpol, because they don't have the authority to do that.
Yeah, I just wonder if anybody added the torture prison as a part of that. I haven't heard anybody say that.
Torture prison. Are you talking about in Israel, or are you talking about Guantanamo?
Israel.
Yeah. Yeah, if not, it's probably in the works. I mean, the stories that came out last week about that are just horrific, about raping male prisoner, raping any prisoners. I mean, it's just, it was, wow. And
people dying.
Yeah, from the torture, yeah. And the world is looking at this going, holy cow, and Netanyahu is out there bragging about what he's doing, and what's really tragic is how much support he has in his own country. I think that they're living in a kind of the equivalent of a Fox News bubble. I mean, there's not a lot of progressive media left in Israel. You've got Haaretz, but it's now become kind of marginalized, and they've blocked now Al Jazeera, so they're not getting the Arab viewpoint at all in Israel. Netanyahu shut that down 2 weeks ago, I believe it was. So, Dee, I got to run. Yeah, thanks for the call. 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls. And, first my daily take, and then we'll be picking up your calls for the rest of the day. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So the Washington Post reported that it looks like General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the dictator of Egypt, organized a $10 million cash bribe to Donald Trump when he was most desperate for cash during the 2016 election. And then Donald Trump repaid him by, embracing him, bringing him into the White House, making Egypt one of his visits, and just doing things that normally you don't do with countries that are run by dictators. The Washington Post pretty much nailed this. Well, why didn't we learn about this earlier? The FBI investigated it starting in 2018, but in 2019, Attorney General Bill Barr shut down the investigation. This is not the first time he has done this. He also shut down the investigation into the Iran-Contra affair, where the Reagan campaign was, paying Iran with weaponry to hold the hostages to screw Jimmy Carter. There's an op-ed about it over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, "When Will Bill Barr Be Brought to Justice?" Check it out.
They climbed the ladder, reaching so high, built their fortunes under an American sky. But now they pulled that ladder away, leaving the rest of us in disarray. Wrong capitalism, ruthless and cold. The strong survive while the weak lose hold. They lock the gates, no room to grow, while we're left struggling down below. The rich tearing down the dream, making it harder for us all to succeed. They change the rules, closed every
Will the morbidly rich ever go back to being good American citizens? Both our op-ed and our song for the day. 22 years ago, I've got the wrong article here in front of me. Here we go. Are the morbidly rich sabotaging the system that made them wealthy? That's the title for today. And now they're pulling the ladder up, by the way, to make it harder for entrepreneurs and small business people to succeed in America. This is, one of the top architects of Project 2025 got kind of busted with a hidden camera interview. It came out yesterday. And, he said that he's still with Trump. Trump's still with him. They're going to run the Trump administration. They're going to just basically destroy guardrails around capitalism. See, there's two kinds of capitalism. This is the thing people miss all the time. People say, "Oh yeah, capitalism took away your health care. Capitalism did this." There's two kinds of capitalism. There is raw capitalism, the kind that was practiced from the time of Gilgamesh up until the late 1930s in the United States. Sometimes it's referred to as laissez-faire capitalism, which is French for leave me alone. In other words, now with raw capitalism like that, what you end up with is a very small number of very rich people, and each family owns basically one industry. We saw this in the United States a couple of hundred years ago, or 150 years ago. The Rockefellers owned oil, the Carnegies owned steel, the Vanderbilts owned railroads, the Astor family owned real estate, the Armour family owned meatpacking, the Morgan family owned banking, the DuPont family owned chemicals and explosives. I mean, right across the board, they were oligarchs who completely dominated these industries and never allowed small competitors in. In fact, wiped them out, gleefully. In economic policies, it's called raw or laissez-faire or vicious capitalism. The second kind of capitalism is what Adam Smith and David Ricardo talked about back in 1776 and 1920, or 1820, respectively, but was not really put into place until here in the United States, Franklin Roosevelt in 1933, when he became president in March of 1933, he put into place what was referred to then as Keynesian economics, which was really just classical economics with regulated capitalism. He said, we're going to allow labor to have equal power with employers through unions. We're going to have regulatory agencies that are going to say you can't increase your profits by dumping your poison in the rivers where they end up in people's water supplies. We're going to protect consumers from bad products. We're going to protect consumers from bad drugs and dangerous foods. This regulate, and we're going to have antitrust laws so we don't end up with individual industries entirely dominated by 1, 2, or 3 companies. Now, a large part of the Reagan agenda, which was followed by Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, and Obama, was to allow these conglomerates, to allow these massive monopolistic industries. Biden is going after them for the first time. He's taking us back to Keynesian economics, taking us back to this whole antitrust thing, which is just great. And Lena Khan at the Federal Trade Commission doing the same thing, which is why there's all this pressure on Biden and Harris to fire her. But anyhow, the bottom line is we're bringing this back, and you've got these billionaires in the Republican Party who, we're bringing back regulated capitalism, which then allows for a middle class and protects working class people. And the billionaires and the right-wingers and the GOP, they want to go back to, they want to, charge forward into complete raw capitalism, get rid of all the regulatory agencies. 6 Republicans on the Supreme Court just championed this effort by overturning the Chevron deference. And basically turn America into the world that Charles Dickens wrote about in Christmas Carol, where you've got a small number of very rich people, a small number of middle-class people, and a massive number of working poor living in grinding poverty. This is the Republican vision for America. You can read all about it at HartmannReport.com today. I'll be right back with your calls.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's Anything Goes Friday. Stay tuned. Rare commodity, a world where the voices of the people are drowned out by the deafening roar of corporate interests. That's the world we inch closer to every day as the free press falls deeper into the hands of the morbidly rich. You won't see criticisms of money and politics on the corporate media. Democracy becomes impossible when the flow of information is controlled by those who see the world through the lens of profit. When the stories that matter most are buried and twisted, how can we make informed decisions? How can we vote with confidence in the integrity of our choices when the truth is hidden from us? But there's still hope. There are still places where truth isn't a commodity, where the voices that challenge the status quo can be heard loud and clear. Free Speech TV is one of those places. It's a beacon of light in an increasingly dark media landscape, a platform where people like me, Stephanie Millers, Randy Rhodes, and so many others can speak truth to power without the shackles of corporate influence. Here, we don't have to bend our words to suit the interests of the wealthy. We don't have to sugarcoat the reality or shy away from the hard truths. We can tell you what you need to know because we aren't tied to the whims of corporate advertisers. But here's the thing. Free Speech TV isn't just a platform. It's a movement. It's a lifeline for democracy, and it relies on you, we the people, to keep it alive. We don't have billionaires backing us. We don't have corporate sponsors dictating our content. What we have is you. Your support is what allows us to continue doing what we do, and your donations are what keep the truth flowing, unfiltered, and unafraid. And that's why I'm asking you today, right now, to consider what your support means. I'm asking you to take action right now. Go to freespeech.org/donate or give us a call at 877-378-8669 and make your contribution. Think about what it would mean if Free Speech TV wasn't here, if there was no independent media left to counter the narratives being pushed by corporate giants. If you're angry about the way things are going, if you're frustrated by the lack of real, honest reporting in mainstream media, then now is the time to act. We can't afford to wait. We can't afford to sit back and hope that somebody else will do it. It's up to us, all of us, to come together and support the media that supports us. Call 877-378-8669. While you're making your donation today, I want to do something a little different. Normally, we take this time to uplift you with the inspiring words of people like John Kennedy or Franklin Roosevelt. But today, I want to show you something else. I want to show you what America could look like if we don't stand up for independent media. I want to show you the future that corporate media is pushing us towards, especially if they succeed in helping someone like Donald Trump return to power.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
I want to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall.
I want to build the wall.
I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is
There has to be some form of punishment.
Talking about Gitmo, right? Guantanamo Bay, which, by the way, we are keeping open.
I approve waterboarding. You bet your ass I'd approve it. You bet your ass. In a heartbeat. And I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding. I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay? If that ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS, okay? He's the founder. He founded ISIS. And I would say the co-founder would be crooked Hillary Clinton. I love the old days. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Oh, throw them the hell out of here. Am I allowed to rip that whistle out of the mouth? I'd rip that. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
That's a famous Mussolini quote. You retweeted it. Do you like the quote? Did you know it was Mussolini?
It's okay to know it's Mussolini. Look, Mussolini was Mussolini. It's okay to. It's a very good quote. It's a very interesting quote. Reporter, now the poor guy. You got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. In a rigged election. This is a rigged election.
That you will absolutely accept the result of this election.
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time.
Are you saying you're not prepared now to
What
commit
I'm
to that
saying
principle?
is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists?
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
This is the corporate media's vision of America, a place where the truth is whatever they say it is, where the powerful stay powerful and where the rest of us are left in the dark. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can fight back. We can support the media that refuses to be bought, the media that refuses to be silenced. So please take a moment to think about what's at stake. Take a moment to consider the role you play in this fight. Because without you, there is no free speech TV. Without you, the words of truth and justice are at risk of being silenced forever. This is our moment to stand up, to speak out, and to ensure that the truth remains free and accessible. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
Sun is shining high. Pick up the phone and give it a try. Got a talk to tell or a question to pose. Today's the day, 'cause anything goes.
It's Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. 34 minutes past the hour. Russ in Hickory Hills, Hill, Illinois. Hey, Russ, what's up?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, you know, I was going to call what you talked in the beginning. Is this probably the end of Trump? Because what was it, Maria Teresa Kuma was on? It was 50,000 new voters in Arizona. They went out and signed. Kids are signing up. Our enthusiasm gap jumped from 46 to 88. You know, Tom, but you don't see it in the polls. What was it, the girl running for Rick Scott's seat?
Yeah.
50.1 to 49.9, and we didn't contest that. He won it by 8,000. You know what she's saying down there in Florida? You're going to the old people's, the retirement homes, Kamala Harris signs, Kamala Harris hats.
Yeah.
You know, Tom, they're still stinking Republicans. You see Georgia, you heard what he did, the governor. He has $1.2 million to feed the kids. Nah, I ain't feeding them.
Yeah.
I ain't
he's refusing to spend money for school lunches. Yep, you're right.
But they're scumbags.
Such a good man.
Here's what I ask them. Ask them, would you raise taxes on the rich? Medical leave? Strengthen Social Security, abortion, Azinger, all of them. They'll tell you, no, we're Republicans.
Yep.
I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them.
Yep.
But it looks like, I don't see it in the polling, though, Tom. She's 50-46 in Pennsylvania, or 50,
yeah. I'm not trusting the polling, whether it's up or down or whatever. You know, the polling has been wrong ever since 2016.
Do you think he's going to get? Some people think he's going to get blown out. You know, the guy, he ran the Cheney campaign. He's always on TV. I don't know if you watch Nicole Wallace. He's out of Texas.
Is that Tim? What's his name?
With glasses. Yeah, I can't think of his name, but he ran the Cheney campaign.
Okay.
He thinks she could get a 4 or 5 point boost out of this because this guy is so pathetic.
Oh, I agree. I think it's going to be a blowout election. And here's an added twist. I just tweeted this as a question for people. Donald Trump yesterday requested that Judge Merchan postpone his sentencing. Right now, he's supposed to be sentenced on September 18th.
After the election.
Yeah, and he wants it moved until after the election. And I believe that the reason why is that he's afraid that Judge Merchan, particularly since Trump caused Merchan's daughter to have to go into hiding, that Merchan is actually going to give Trump prison time that he will have to serve starting the day after the election. And so I think Trump is asking to postpone the sentencing because the day after the election, when it is announced that he has lost, he's going to be on his plane to Venezuela.
Yeah, I think so, too. But, you know, Tom, too, you hear this stuff. I know you like one subject. Oh, we got to burn this party to the ground. What are you going to come out of your ashes, Tom? You don't believe in women's rights, abortion rights. What new party? That's all they're going to give you is frosting on the cake, and it's the same cake Trump's trying to ram down your throat.
Yeah,
they don't believe in our ideas.
No, you're right, Russ. This is
they think.
This is the big question. Is the Republican Party, after Trump goes down in flames, is the Republican Party going to reinvent itself in the mold of Ronald Reagan, of Donald Trump, or of Dwight Eisenhower?
Nikki Haley.
If they choose...
How about Nikki Haley?
Well, Nikki Haley's she's also Ronald Reagan. I mean, you know, it's basically, she's just a neoliberal. So if they choose either Trump or Reagan, they're going to continue to be and going forward will become a minority party in the United States. If they choose Dwight Eisenhower, then they have a chance. But I just don't think they will do that. I don't think the billionaires will allow them to do it. Russ, thanks for the call. Tom in Columbus, Ohio. Hey, Tom. Tom? Whoa.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I want to, if you give me 30 seconds, 45 seconds, you know, they're going against Tim Walz on character.
Mm-hmm.
I looked up things on him. When that gentleman was 17, his father was diagnosed with lung cancer. Tim took over helping run the family farm, continued to go to high school, picked up a shift at the tool and die or metal shop that his dad was working to help the family out. You want to come up with character? In 1989, he was voted as the #1 National Guardsman in Nebraska.
Wow. He's a good man. I mean, you know,
taking the stress.
Well, okay, finish your rant, Tom, and then I'll lay mine.
Taking the stress off his father let him live all the way to 1994. Also, when he was a member of the Minnesota National Guard and he was deployed, he worked on blizzards, floods, and tornadoes.
Yep. Yeah, and he also he was also deployed overseas as well. He was deployed to Italy in support of Operation Iraqi Liberation. Here's the latest hit on him. This is all over the right wing this morning. Yesterday, Harris and Walz released a cute little video. You can see it all over Twitter. It's about 8 or 9 minutes long, where they're just having this conversation, the two of them. And they're in a restaurant, and he starts out, you know, she says, "You want some tacos?" And he's like, I eat white boy tacos or white man tacos or whatever. And she's like, "What's that? Tuna fish and mayonnaise?" And he's like, "Nah, just ground beef and cheese." And she says, "No spice?" And he says, "No spice." He said, "In Minnesota, the top of the spice spectrum is black pepper." And so now you've got people saying, "Oh, isn't that racist? He's talking about white boy taco." And so, you know, come on, I grew up in the Midwest. He's right. You do not get spicy food in the Midwest. It is not like New Orleans, you know, or New Mexico. If that's all they've got, Tom, it's pathetic. They're going down in flames. I'm telling you, Tom. Excellent.
Oh, I tell you.
Go ahead.
I tell you what, it could be Goldwater Miller 64 time.
I think so. I think you're absolutely right. Tom, thanks for the call. John in Niles, Michigan. Hey, John, speaking of Michigan. Hey, John, excuse me, what's up?
Yeah, Tom, I was wondering if I could play a folk song from the Seekers about, the title is I'll Never Find Another You.
No, you can't. It will cause YouTube to ding us and bounce us because it's a copyright violation. What was the point of playing the song?
Yeah, I won't play it, but most of your listening audience has never heard this beautiful folk song. It's titled "I'll Never Find Another You" by the Seekers.
I remember that song.
And Judith Dunham passed away a couple years ago, and her beautiful voice and the harmony of the group and the lyrics extremely uplifting in all of this negativity and lies and all this stuff. So I highly encourage your listeners, especially the ones that have never heard that, to listen to it.
Great. Okay, you got it, John. Thank you. Larry in Los Angeles. Hey, Larry, what's on your mind today?
The uber rich.
Okay, go for it.
I was looking at another one of those videos that shows how much the richest man in the world gained, and I'm tracking it per president. And basically, they gain roughly twice as much for every 8 years. Bill Clinton, they did a little better. George W. Bush, they lost money. And Obama, they also gained roughly twice as much. But for Trump, in 4 years, they gained 2.5 times as much.
Yeah, because of his tax cut.
Because of his tax cut, but more important than that, what was even bigger than that was quantitative easing.
The Fed helped under Jerome Powell.
Trillions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like Jerome Powell.
It was like something like $20 trillion, wasn't it? Some mind-boggling amount of money?
Well, if you add Trump's and Powell's total, yes, it comes over $20 trillion.
Yeah.
But the thing that under Biden, the richest man in the world has only gained about $40 billion, roughly the amount that he paid for
Elon.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Yes. So he went from
Elmo.
$13 billion to over $200 billion, but he's only gotten $40 billion under Joe Biden. And that's why the tech guys are so anti-Joe Biden, because they want that quantitative easing back. They want that fascist quantitative easing back because that's where they made the big bucks. And when you sit back and look at it's kind of strange. Joe Biden has seen almost as many points added to the Dow as Trump did, but the billionaires aren't getting the money.
Yeah.
That money is being spread out to everybody else because what's happening is now the Fed, for Joe Biden, the Fed is pulling in those trillions, and they're taking billions and billions of dollars out of the economy under Joe Biden, and that money's coming out of the rich guys' pockets. Because they're losing some of that those bonds, those corporate bonds, and that's why they're not making money.
Yeah, makes sense. I saw a meme this morning on Twitter that Elmo is making $10 million a minute. Jeff Bezos is making $4 million a minute. There was some other billionaire is making $3 million a minute. And then it said, but yeah, sure, illegal immigrants are really hurting America. That's the problem.
And they're all still around $200 billion. It hasn't moved since Joe Biden's been president because the Fed is pulling all those trillions out of the, it's called quantitative tightening.
Yeah, there you go. I got it.
That's why you have all those top guys going for Donald Trump. They want that fascism, and they want it badly.
I get it, Larry. Larry, thank you. You always bring the goods. Great talking with you. It's 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Friday. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's Anything Goes weekend, picking up your calls. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Susan in Caldwell, Idaho. Hey, Susan, what's on your mind today?
Oh, just a reference to your opening rant in the corporate, the hedge funds infiltrating our housing market. A couple of years ago, renters in, I believe it was California, filed class action suits against a couple of those firms that aggregate the rental prices in an area and then feed it to the corporate landlord, so everybody's charging the same price so they can all, quote, maximize their profit. Mm-hmm. And then this past month, Politico is reporting that the DOJ's opening up a case against these, I guess you would call them price aggregators, to force them to stop on the theory that software or AI research is not an excuse for collusion to fix prices, you know, in that area.
It's just a new form of collusion that looks a little different than the old, smoke-filled rooms.
Yeah. Then I have a thought on monkeypox, which for old people might be nice. Okay, first of all, monkeypox is an absolute failure of our World Health Organization and us, because we saw this coming 2 years ago, and we did not nobody in the developed world made any provision for the home area where this disease lives to start immunization campaigns, right? So you have whole populations, starting in the Democratic Republic of Congo and now everywhere else, who have not had a vaccine. And now we have a new strain that apparently was always there, but it wasn't the dominant strain that is absolutely lethal in young children when it gets on them. But for old people like us who got our smallpox vaccines before they stopped them in 1980, we have a residual immunity because the pox family of these viruses have. Remember, our smallpox vaccine that we used originated from the cowpox disease.
Sure. These are all zoonotic diseases. What
Grandmas and grandpas can rest a little easier, but be fearful for your young grandchildren. That's my thought.
Yeah, I wonder if it's time to start inoculating kids against chickenpox again. Where did you read or learn that? I'd like to find the source of that the chickenpox vaccine confers some immunity to monkeypox, or mpox they call it now.
Not the chickenpox vaccine, the smallpox vaccine that us old people got.
Oh, smallpox.
Oh, it's all over the place. You just
pick it up.
You just look up mpox vaccine versus smallpox, and they've had theories ever since the 60s, when shortly after they identified mpox, about the cross immunities, and they have. It's hard to do titrations on people who've been vaccinated, 70 and 60 years ago, but it's still there.
Do you think having had chickenpox gives you some immunity? Because that's another zoonotic disease. It came out of birds.
I don't think they've examined that one, because we didn't have a chickenpox vaccine the way we did.
No, but we all had chickenpox back in the 60s, 50s.
Right, but we've had like a 200-year, 200-year experience with smallpox vaccinations in all of our Western societies, and even the world societies too. Yeah, it was a recruiting. Well, before that was pure smallpox that Washington used, but it was a recruiting tool to get soldiers into the Continental Army. I'll tell you that. Yeah,
for sure. Susan, thank you for the call, and thanks for the enlightenment. I appreciate it. Sean just looked this up, and she said, the CDC says if you had the smallpox vaccine, you have some immunity to mpox. That's fascinating. 49 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us.
I'm here on the airwaves, ready for the fight. I'm challenging the voices that think they know what's right.
Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour, picking up your calls here. Morris in Long Beach, California. Hey, Morris. Welcome to Lefty Talk Radio. What's up?
What's going on, Tom? You ever heard of Bruno Mars?
I have not.
Yeah, Bruno Mars, he's like the Beatles of today. Anyway, he opened up yesterday, Tom, at the Intuit Stadium. The Intuit Stadium is a brand new Clippers basketball arena that Steve Ballmer's built it. He built it. And so they opened up with Bruno Mars yesterday. And I was at the concert, but I wasn't inside being entertained. I was outside protesting. And what I was protesting was that news. Oh, by the way, before I get started, let me say this. Larry, if you're still listening, you're a bad man. Okay, let me move forward now. But anyway, I'm out there protesting at the Intuit Stadium. You know, Bruno Mars is performing. Now, what I'm protesting is this time, Mr. Balmer agreed to give the city of Inglewood $100 million to build this new stadium. $75 million went to the developers. Okay, I'm jealous, but nothing I can do about that. But 12.7 or 12.3 was to come to our school district, the Inglewood Unified School District, which has been in receivership for about 11 years. The school district was not even aware of this money. We're talking about a CBA. CBA is abbreviation for Community Benefits Agreement. Anytime they build these big old stadiums, they have one of those. Well, in order to get a copy, check this out, Tom, you're a smart man. In order to get a copy of this Community Benefits Agreement, I'm talking about the county administrator, Dr. James Morris, his office. In order for him to get a copy of this community benefits agreement, which specifies how much money his district is supposed to get that they didn't know about, the county clerk, Alicia Thompson, wants the county to come in with, tell them to wait 35 days and pay for every page. Now, Tom, that's criminal, because normally you can go on Google, you can go online and Google stuff like that. But what's happening is we got a mayor, James Butts. I don't get mad at the player. Look at the game. Thank you, Citizens United. We got two billionaires that are just running roughshod in Inglewood. One of them is named Steve Ballmer, the richest man in sports, and the other one is named Stan Kroenke, who's a puppet master in Inglewood. For example, Stan Kroenke owns the Los Angeles Rams. He got 297 acres to build his stadium. I'm jealous, but check this out. He got a tax exemption on school bonds. Now, how does that happen? Wow. But anyway, get back to the Intuit Stadium. I'm out there. All I want, Tom, is the $12 million plus that's coming to the school district. Now, if you're in real estate, they got a word called concurrent. Everything works because you work with the escrow company and the title company. Everything's done concurrently. You get the house, I get my money, that guy, the bank gets their money, a new loan. Everything's done concurrently. When that guy got his, that guy being Steve Ballmer, when he got his certificate of occupancy from the city of Inglewood, at that moment, escrow's closing, send us our check, but we haven't gotten it yet. So check this out. On July the 4th, I protested in front of the stadium. On July the 3rd, I called the Inglewood Police Department to let them know I was protesting. The reason why I do that is because I don't want to trouble with my wife. Okay, when I called July the 3rd, the Inglewood Police Department to let them know I'll be protesting in front of the new stadium, guess who answered the phone, Tom?
Who?
Take a guess. The mayor, James Butt.
Oh, how cool.
I'm not kidding you. So now I said, Mr. Butt, because I just recognized his voice. What are you doing here? Well, the person just stepped out for a moment. He's the mayor. What are you doing answering the phone at the police department? So they're paying attention to me.
Yeah.
They had another thing in Inglewood where they had a festivity, a political festivity. Maxine Waters was there and whatnot, and I was protesting that. They tried to throw me out. They tried to throw me out last night, but I know the law. So I'm going to get this money. Democracy, it's an action thing. You got to get busy doing something.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do. It don't matter what it is. But I've been an advocate for the Inglewood Unified School District for 5 years, okay? And this is a month of August of 2024. We are due $12 million. Give me my check.
There you go.
All right, let me let you go, Tom.
Okay, good luck, Morris. That's a good one. Morris is an inspiration to us all, I'm telling you. Rudy in Chicago. Hey, Rudy, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Tom. I just wanted to get your thoughts on this Social Security thing as it relates to Project 2025 as conservatives get back into office. And, it kind of ticks me off that they don't tell the truth to the American people about Social Security. It dates back, I guess, when FDR approved it and so forth. And, this country gives away billions and billions of dollars every year to other countries and so forth. But yet still, they tell, the people, well, Social Security, the longevity, we don't know if money's going to be there past 2035. But yet and still, they give away all this money. They don't, sometimes they don't get the money back.
The simple matter, the fact of the matter is that Social Security taxes on your income are capped right now at around $170,000 a year. So if you make more than $170,000 a year, you no longer pay Social Security tax. And so what that means is that, all the people who make under $170,000 pay 100% of the Social Security tax, and people who make $1 million a year, $2 million a year, Elon Musk, making $40 million a minute or whatever, $10 million a minute, they're paying nothing into the Social Security fund after they've paid on that first $170,000 worth of income. And if every American, including millionaires and billionaires, paid the exact same percentage as a bus driver or a janitor or a person working at McDonald's, then Social Security would not only be solvent for the next 70 years, it would have enough extra money that we could give a 20% raise to everybody in the country on Social Security. And you know, conceivably, we could expand the Medicare program to include dental, hearing, vision, and you know, substantially expand Medicare. But Republicans will not allow it. They want that money. They want the Social Security. They've been calling it socialism and a Ponzi scheme ever since 1935 when FDR put it into law. And they want that money to be administered by Citibank and Bank of America. You know, the big banks that give massive contributions to Republican politicians.
Yeah, I mean, they call it, you know, entitlement, and that's a lie because, I mean, this is the people money. They worked. Well,
you're entitled to it because you paid into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we need to revive that word. I mean, I have a little bit of money in my checking account. I'm entitled to it.
Right.
It's my money.
Exactly.
So.
And I don't know whether or not, you know, if they do something like that, they're talking about cutting or getting rid of it. What are the people supposed to do? I mean, you got people living on 100% of Social Security.
Oh, I know. It's terrible. And it used to, you know, in 1980, when Reagan came into office in 81, you could live on Social Security. But he changed the cost of living formula so that every year Social Security benefits relative to inflation went down. And now it's really damn hard to live on Social Security. Rudy, I got to run, but thanks for the call. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
I want you to imagine a world where the truth is a rare commodity, a world where the voices of the people are drowned out by the deafening roar of corporate interests. That's the world we inch closer to every day as the free press falls deeper into the hands of the morbidly rich. You won't see criticisms of money and politics on the corporate media. Democracy becomes impossible when the flow of information is controlled by those who see the world through the lens of profit. When the stories that matter most are buried and twisted, how can we make informed decisions? How can we vote with confidence in the integrity of our choices when the truth is hidden from us? But there's still hope. There are still places where truth isn't a commodity, where the voices that challenge the status quo can be heard loud and clear. Free Speech TV is one of those places. It's a beacon of light in an increasingly dark media landscape, a platform where people like me, Stephanie Millers, Randy Rhodes, and so many others can speak truth to power without the shackles of corporate influence. Here, we don't have to bend our words to suit the interests of the wealthy. We don't have to sugarcoat the reality or shy away from the hard truths. We can tell you what you need to know because we aren't tied to the whims of corporate advertisers. But here's the thing. Free Speech TV isn't just a platform. It's a movement. It's a lifeline for democracy, and it relies on you, we the people, to keep it alive. We don't have billionaires backing us. We don't have corporate sponsors dictating our content. What we have is you. Your support is what allows us to continue doing what we do. And your donations are what keep the truth flowing, unfiltered, and unafraid. And that's why I'm asking you today, right now, to consider what your support means. I'm asking you to take action right now. Go to freespeech.org/donate or give us a call at 877-378-8669 and make your contribution. Think about what it would mean if Free Speech TV wasn't here, if there was no independent media left to counter the narratives being pushed by corporate giants. If you're angry about the way things are going, if you're frustrated by the lack of real, honest reporting in mainstream media, then now is the time to act. We can't afford to wait. We can't afford to sit back and hope that somebody else will do it. It's up to us, all of us, to come together and support the media that supports us. Call 877-378-8669. While you're making your donation today, I want to do something a little different. Normally, we take this time to uplift you with the inspiring words of people like John Kennedy or Franklin Roosevelt. But today, I want to show you something else. I want to show you what America could look like if we don't stand up for independent media. I want to show you the future that corporate media is pushing us towards, especially if they succeed in helping someone like Donald Trump return to power.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
I want to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall. I want to build the wall. I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is there has to be some form of punishment. Talking about Gitmo, right? Guantanamo Bay, which, by the way, we are keeping open. I approve waterboarding. You bet your ass I'd approve it. You bet your ass. In a heartbeat. And I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding.
I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay? If that ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS, okay? He's the founder. He founded ISIS. And I would say the co-founder would be crooked Hillary Clinton. I love the old days. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Oh, throw them the hell out of here. Am I allowed to rip that whistle out of the mouth? I'd rip that. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
That's a famous Mussolini quote. You retweeted it. Do you like the quote? Did you know it was Mussolini?
It's okay to know it's Mussolini. Look, Mussolini was Mussolini. It's okay to. It's a very good quote. It's a very interesting quote. Reporter, now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. In a rigged election. This is a rigged election.
That you will absolutely accept the result of this election.
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time.
Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists?
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
This is the corporate media's vision of America, a place where the truth is whatever they say it is, where the powerful stay powerful and where the rest of us are left in the dark. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can fight back. We can support the media that refuses to be bought, the media that refuses to be silenced. So please, take a moment to think about what's at stake. Take a moment to consider the role you play in this fight. Because without you, there is no Free Speech TV. Without you, the words of truth and justice are at risk of being silenced forever. This is our moment to stand up, to speak out, and to ensure that the truth remains free and accessible.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the second hour of our program. First he goes after cats and cat ladies, J.D. Vance, and now apparently him and Kevin, is it Kevin Roberts? What's his last name? Kevin Roberts. He's the president of the Heritage Foundation. He's got a new book out, Dawn's Early Light, Taking Back Washington, D.C. to Save America. J.D. Vance wrote the foreword for it. And in this book, Roberts says he targets this is from Media Matters, quote, Roberts targets the Swamp Doodle Dog Park in Washington, D.C. for having too much room for dogs to play and not enough room for children. He says this is the result of, quote, the anti-family culture shaping legislation, regulation, and enforcement through our sprawling government. Yeah. He goes on to write, getting married and having kids gives you skin in the game for the future of your country. It forces you to grow up, give up childish things, and live in the real world. Right. Let's go after dog people. Those dog parks, they're just too... Sean's here with her fists up. Sean's got two beautiful, big, beautiful dogs. Amazing. It's just amazing. Also, Donald Trump says, I'm entitled to have personal attacks against Kamala Harris. Now, Sidney Blumenthal has an interesting column. You know, he was one of Clinton's advisors back in the day. I mean, Bill Clinton. Well, actually, he was an advisor to Hillary as well. In fact, it was his emails that initially got leaked by WikiLeaks. The headline is, Donald Trump is desperate to land a punch on Kamala Harris, but he fails. And he starts out telling the story of King George III. King George III was the guy who, we fought the Revolutionary War against, I believe. There was a transition between King George II and George III that was right around the time of the Revolution. I'm pretty sure that George III, well, anyway, I'm not a scholar of British history, but here's the story. George III apparently suffered from bipolar disorder. And he read Shakespeare's play about a mad king, King Lear. And apparently, this is from his doctor. These papers were only released 6 years ago, but this is from 1788, right? The year that we finished writing the Constitution and we were selling the Constitution. The Constitution was written in 1787. It was ratified in 1789. This is 1788. This is the King's doctor, quote, this morning he is more agitated and confused, perhaps from having been permitted to read King Lear. It upset him so much, His Majesty became so ungovernable that recourse was had to the strait waistcoat, also known as a straitjacket. They put King George III in a straitjacket. Yeah. So here we have this mad king, Donald Trump, or wannabe king, once and future king, maybe. And, but, you know, consider this. In Federalist 69, Alexander Hamilton wrote, our president will be subject to impeachment and removal and liable to prosecution and punishment in the ordinary course of law. The person of the King of Great Britain is sacred and inviolable. There is no constitutional tribunal to which he is amenable, no punishment to which he can be subjected without involving the crisis of a national revolution, end quote. But on July 1st, when the 6 right-wingers on the Supreme Court, these radical Republicans, ruled that Donald Trump has immunity from criminal prosecution if he commits official acts, Justice Sotomayor, dissented, saying the president is now a king above the law. As Shakespeare wrote in King John, mad world, mad kings, mad composition. Yeah. So Trump now comes out and says, I have a right to make personal attacks on, and he's calling her Kamala and asking if she's black, and I mean, he's just, you know, saying that she has a screechy voice, and all the things that these idiot men, these just real ass men, who hate women, say about women, or white racists say about black people. He's saying she's stupid, she's lazy, she doesn't. I mean, it is so transparent. This is not a dog whistle. This is a bullhorn. You know, Donald Trump, he's doing everything except call her the N-word. And he would do that, you know, if he could get away with it. In fact, behind the scenes, he's calling her the B word. So, you know, the word for female dogs. So, anyway. Tim Walz, this is, I think I mentioned this, or was I telling Sean about it? No, I think I mentioned it on the air, that Tim Walz was talking about white guy food. There's this new video out. Did I talk about this on the air, Sean, or did I just tell you during the break? About the white guy tacos? Yes. Yeah, okay. Yes, what? I did say it on the air. Okay, so I don't need to go. I'm not going to repeat all that. But anyhow, they're all, apparently the Republicans are all hysterical, saying, you know, this was race, this is racism. Nah, I grew up in the Midwest. You know, it's not racism. Sorry. You know, they just can't find anything to pick on these guys with, you know, Walz and Harris. And then you know, Trump's campaign to belittle Harris. A number of people, you know, another number of Republicans are saying that this is just hurting Trump. I mean, this is not helping him at all. And I agree with this. I mean, I'm seeing Republicans now coming out and say this, and I think they're absolutely right. I just don't think that personal attacks are going to work. When Trump, here's how things change. In 2016 and 2015, really, when Trump was running in the Republican primary, he started using personal attacks, slurs, and name calling as a way of demonstrating the weakness of his Republican opponents. You know, low energy Jeb, little Marco. Marco tried to push back saying, Trump's got small hands, you know what that means. And Trump was like, you know, I can, you know, guarantee there's nothing wrong down there. Well, Stormy Daniels would differ, but nonetheless, it didn't stick. But little Marco, they still call him little Marco. And so here you've got, but what happened was back in 2015, no politician had ever really done that before. I mean, you know, Ronald Reagan didn't make fun of the appearance of Jimmy Carter or his wife. I mean, Trump actually went after Ted Cruz's wife, called her ugly. And so because it was novel, because it was new, because it was a brand new thing in politics, I mean, you know, 240 years of American politics, and we had never had a politician call another politician's wife ugly as part of his campaign, as a winning strategy, or imply that he's you know, low energy or has small male equipment or anything like that. It just had not been done. And so when Trump did it, it was novel, and that you know, the old saying, you know, when a dog bites a man, that's not news. When a man bites a dog, that's news, right? This was the man bites dog. Nobody had ever done it before, and so it got a lot of coverage, and it actually was effective. Well, that was 10 years ago. It's not effective, or 9 years ago. It's not effective anymore. It's just like, you know, everybody's like, okay, Donald, so, you know, you want to do name calling. Isn't that what 10-year-olds do on the playground? I just don't see how he can win this election this way. I mean, you know, I'll give you, we're still, you know, a couple months out. We're a month and a half out from early voting. We're 80 some odd days, or in the neighborhood of 80 days out from the election itself. And anything can happen in that period of time. Yeah, we're exactly 80 days out today. 80 days, 14 hours, 45 minutes, and 18 seconds from the election, from the end of the election, or maybe that's the beginning of the election day. But I just don't see it working. Do you? I'm curious what you think. I realize big things could happen. You know, some huge scandal about Harris and Walz could come out. If there is one, Republicans are going to hold it close to their chest until probably the last week of September, the first week of October. You know, the whole October surprise thing, although October surprises don't work as well now because now we've got all this extended early voting, which, you know, I mean, Trump just early voted. So I believe that was in the primary, though. Anyhow, back with your calls.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's Anything Goes weekend here on the Thom Hartmann Program. What's on your mind? Welcome back. Jessica, watching Free Speech TV in Chicago. Hey, Jessica, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I think your clips of Trump were excellent towards the beginning. That would make an excellent ad. Those Oh my goodness, that would be a good ad.
Which clips?
But
they were on Free Speech TV, you mean?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen those.
That's
Nate
what
put
you
them together
always
last
talk
night.
about. I thought they were yours because that's stuff you've always done.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I recorded a thing for it, and then Nate put a lot of work into this. He did it all yesterday afternoon, and it's running now. But I haven't seen it because I don't see or hear the show during the breaks.
It's wonderful. It should be on prime time, regular TV.
Cool.
And so I have more info on Vance. He had a very brief time in active legal practice. Vance never took his boards, and if he
his
did,
bar exam,
he
you
didn't.
mean? Or the final exams in law school.
He went to law school for 3 years at Yale. Never took boards. He didn't pass. There's no record. And Vance could only do legal work under the supervision of another attorney.
So he didn't graduate from law school. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not certain if he graduated. He went from 2010 to 2013. Right. He married his wife 2014. He never took boards, but he worked for a law firm for a short time. And he worked under the supervision of another attorney.
I wonder if he's really not that bright.
Right?
I just assumed that the guy was really smart, but demented, but smart. Maybe he's like Trump, just not that bright.
Yes, because what he did at Yale, everyone, it's online. He took advantage of social opportunities. He cooked for charity fundraisers. He organized reading groups. He led the Yale Law School Journal flag football team. That's what he did. And I have to laugh when the idiot Trump says Kamala didn't pass her bars, because I don't even think Trump could pass a high school exam.
No, he hired people to take his exams for him in college and probably also in prep school.
Mm-hmm. And then yesterday I had an answer to, you said, will the morbidity of rich ever go back to being good Americans? And my answer is a definite no. Right. Our Trumpster neighbor is even more greedy than he was. He's trying to take 3 feet of our driveway.
Oh, no.
Nothing's good enough for him. Yeah. And so he's building his pool 5 feet away from our property. And the rules in our town say it has to be 10 feet away. So I went in and asked about that. And so then the guy, the administrator, called up and he said, oh, it's 5 feet now. And I said, oh, did he buy a variance for that? And then he said, oh, no, it's 5 feet. So then I said, can it be 5 feet from electrical wires? And he's like, oh. And then, so today he came out, he goes, oh, he can't build that pool 5 feet away from the electrical wires. So it's insane what we're going to go through for the next month. Wow. He's so awful.
Well, good luck, Jessica. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Well, you're so kind, and all of your listeners are too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good luck,
everybody
Jessica.
Wish me luck.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I wish you the very best. Thanks. Wow, amazing. We have good neighbors. I'm blessed. I'm telling you, you can't pick your neighbors. It's 19 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. It's no coincidence that the time in Europe when the church ran the continent, from around the 5th century to around the 15th or 16th century, that 1,000-year period is referred to as the Dark Ages. This is what happens when religion controls politics, when religion controls the state, the nation. And every nation in Europe was controlled essentially by the Catholic Church during that period of time. It got busted up with the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century. This was what the founders of this country very much knew about. George Washington refused to declare himself a Christian. Thomas Paine wrote an entire book embracing atheism. Ben Franklin fled Massachusetts as a teenager to escape the religious threats. And Thomas Jefferson went off on it regularly. There's a whole piece about how the Republicans are trying to impose a new dark age on America. It's all laid out, all the quotes and all the links over at hartmannreport.com. Check it out.
You see the world around you, it's changing every day. Frustration in your heart and you don't know what to say. You feel the weight of anger, the heaviness of fear, but there's a way to make a change. The path is crystal clear. Don't just sit there waiting for the tide to turn. Rise up and take your stand. Let your passion burn.
21 minutes past the hour. Tag, you're it. Indeed. Anthony in Boise, Idaho. Hey, Anthony, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. First time calling. I did have a question about the idea of Trump escaping to Venezuela should he lose the election.
Yeah.
I understand Venezuela doesn't have any extradition treaties.
That's correct.
Wouldn't he be in danger of Maduro maybe imprisoning him for his support of the coup with Guaido and all that went on a few years ago?
My guess is that if Trump goes to Venezuela and says to Maduro, I'll help legitimize you, Maduro will embrace him. These guys are both hustlers.
Okay.
They know each other. They're cut from the same cloth. Even though Maduro claims he's a lefty and Trump claims he's a righty, they're really both authoritarians. So yeah, I think it's entirely possible that he will do this. I mean, he told Elon Musk he was going to do it. He said, if I lose the election, or he said, if the election goes the wrong way, we'll have to have lunch in Venezuela. I'm taking it as him at his word. Anthony, thanks for the call. Stephen in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Stephen, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Say, did I hear you right last week discussing the idea you're going to put solar panels on your place?
We did. We're waiting for the city electrical inspector to come out and finalize it, and then the power company puts a reverse meter on. So it'll be another week or two before we're actually generating electricity off our roof. But then my car will be driving absolutely free. Which is incredible.
Wow, that's great. Say, did you have to cut trees or anything in order to get the sunshine on them? Or?
No, we didn't. Fortunately, the house was in an area where it was full sunlight.
I was going to say, here in New Mexico, we have two major manufacturers building huge facilities that will employ eventually up to 2,600 people in solar energy. One of the companies' name is Maxion, and another one is Ebon out of Delaware.
That's interesting. I don't recall the brand, but the solar panels they put on our house were made in the U.S., which was kind of cool.
They're probably self-fab.
Yeah, okay. I don't know.
Because they're made here in Washington and up in Toronto.
Yeah. Cool.
One other thing I was going to say, check with your home insurance company, because some home insurance companies won't cover solar in the event of hailstorms.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'll do that.
So you might want to see, sometimes they'll just increase it a little bit in order to cover it, or they might already have a policy that's included.
Yeah.
It's what I found out after I had mine on for 2 years. And I've saved now, I haven't had an electric bill in about 28 months.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I'm quite sure that once we get this thing rolling, that it's going to alter our habits. I mean, we're pretty good about turning lights out and stuff. But, when you're making your own electricity, you start paying attention to it a whole lot more closely.
Yeah, no, it's the best way to go. And when you live in areas where there's enough sunshine during the year, it saves a lot of money.
Yeah, we're gonna pretty much hit our consumption throughout the summer, even with air conditioning. But in the winter, because we're at such a northern latitude, we're only going to be covering probably 35% of our electricity. But hey, it's cool. It's fun. We had a power failure last night. The power went out at 11 o'clock, came back on at 2 o'clock. We don't have the system online yet because they haven't put the meter in yet. So our house went dark for 3 hours. I'm looking forward to the time when the house won't go dark because we've got 3 batteries that are installed in the garage too that go with the system. So anyway.
That's great. What kind of solar car do you have?
I've got a Hyundai Ioniq 5.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They are the most spectacular car. They're like spaceships. They are so cool. If you've never driven one, take a test drive. They'll blow your mind. These cars.
I'll have to try that. Thank you.
Yeah, Stephen, I got to move along, but thanks for the call. Good talking to you. Beachside Bill. Hey, Bill in Orlando. What's up?
Afternoon, Tom. Hope all is well. It's been a while.
So far, so good.
You had
You had a call earlier talk about the children in Florida. You know, 1 in 5 children in Florida are food independent. They need food. And it's just a sad statistic for this governor, like you were just talking about electric. He denies climate change, and he says knock on wood when the storms are out there. So that's where I'm stuck at here. We're still way behind you here in Florida. We're catching up. We will catch up. But another thing about this deviant governor of mine, he's on our amendment, the Amendment 4, which is the abortion amendment, he wants to attach a legal definition. What do I call it? A financial statement. I'm sorry, I got lost there. And in the financial statement, he says that abortions may negatively affect the growth of state and local revenues over time, and potential litigation will result in additional costs to the state governments. So, in other words, you know, he's anti-abortion amendment.
Yeah, he's basically saying have more babies because they grow up to be taxpayers, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, and he wants white babies too.
Yeah, of course he does. You know, what a great argument. Beachside Bill, thank you very much. It's 27 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
In the truth Ron DeSantis would really rather you didn't know all about. I'll be right back with more of your calls.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I want you to imagine a world where the truth is a rare commodity, a world where the voices of the people are drowned out by the deafening roar of corporate interests. That's the world we inch closer to every day as the free press falls deeper into the hands of the morbidly rich. You won't see criticisms of money and politics on the corporate media. Democracy becomes impossible when the flow of information is controlled by those who see the world through the lens of profit. When the stories that matter most are buried and twisted, how can we make informed decisions? How can we vote with confidence in the integrity of our choices when the truth is hidden from us? But there's still hope. There are still places where truth isn't a commodity, where the voices that challenge the status quo can be heard loud and clear. Free Speech TV is one of those places. It's a beacon of light in an increasingly dark media landscape, a platform where people like me, Stephanie Millers, Randy Rhodes, and so many others can speak truth to power without the shackles of corporate influence. Here, we don't have to bend our words to suit the interests of the wealthy. We don't have to sugarcoat the reality or shy away from the hard truths. We can tell you what you need to know because we aren't tied to the whims of corporate advertisers. But here's the thing. Free Speech TV isn't just a platform. It's a movement. It's a lifeline for democracy, and it relies on you, we the people, to keep it alive. We don't have billionaires backing us. We don't have corporate sponsors dictating our content. What we have is you. Your support is what allows us to continue doing what we do, and your donations are what keep the truth flowing, unfiltered, and unafraid. And that's why I'm asking you today, right now, to consider what your support means. I'm asking you to take action right now. Go to freespeech.org/donate or give us a call at 877-378-8669 and make your contribution. Think about what it would mean if Free Speech TV wasn't here, if there was no independent media left to counter the narratives being pushed by corporate giants. If you're angry about the way things are going, if you're frustrated by the lack of real, honest reporting in mainstream media, then now is the time to act. We can't afford to wait. We can't afford to sit back and hope that somebody else will do it. It's up to us, all of us, to come together and support the media that supports us. Call 877-378-8669. While you're making your donation today, I want to do something a little different. Normally, we take this time to uplift you with the inspiring words of people like John Kennedy or Franklin Roosevelt. But today, I want to show you something else. I want to show you what America could look like if we don't stand up for independent media. I want to show you the future that corporate media is pushing us towards, especially if they succeed in helping someone like Donald Trump return to power.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime,
They're rapists.
I want to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall.
I want to build the wall. I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is there has to be some form of punishment.
Talking about Gitmo, right? Guantanamo Bay, which, by the way, we are keeping open. I approve waterboarding. You bet your ass I'd approve it. You bet your ass. In a heartbeat.
And I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding.
I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay? If that ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS, okay? He's the founder. He founded ISIS. And I would say the co-founder would be crooked Hillary Clinton. I love the old days. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Oh, throw them the hell out of here. Am I allowed to rip that whistle out of the mouth? I'd rip that.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
That's a famous Mussolini quote. You retweeted it. You like the quote? Did you know it was Mussolini?
It's okay to know it's Mussolini. Look, Mussolini was Mussolini. It's okay to. It's a very good quote. It's a very interesting quote. Reporter, now the poor guy. You got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. In a rigged election. This is a rigged election.
That you will absolutely accept the result of this election.
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time.
Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit
What
to
I'm
that
saying
principle?
is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists?
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
This is the corporate media's vision of America, a place where the truth is whatever they say it is, where the powerful stay powerful and where the rest of us are left in the dark. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can fight back. We can support the media that refuses to be bought, the media that refuses to be silenced. So please, take a moment to think about what's at stake. Take a moment to consider the role you play in this fight. Because without you, there is no free speech TV. Without you, the words of truth and justice are at risk of being silenced forever. This is our moment to stand up, to speak out, and to ensure that the truth remains free and accessible. Hey, if you like the rants that I open the show with every day, they're typically published over at hartmanreport.com. Check it out.
Wake up with the sunrise, feeling so alive. Turn that radio on, let your spirit fly. You got a thought to share.
Welcome back. 34 minutes past the hour. On the line with us is Tony Kark. He's the executive director of Accountable.us. And the Accountable US just came up with a remarkable report on the White House and Medicare's negotiated drug prices and how Big Pharma unleashed an army of lawyers to avoid lowering Medicare drug costs. Tony, welcome to the program. Tell us about this.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me. At Accountable, we've been doing a lot of work looking at how Big Pharma has been trying to has been opposing tooth and nail the Biden-Harris administration to lower drug costs for seniors on Medicare. Like they've been doing it through the courts. They've been manipulating the patent system. And the report that we released yesterday was just showing how the manufacturers of the drugs, the 10 drugs that were announced yesterday, how they've been using different types of tactics to keep exclusivity on their products. And what that means is they're using the patent system to artificially keep competition out from competing to lower prices and just to keep prices high for seniors. So there's like a various set of ways that they do this. It's called tactics like evergreening, where they just put a lot of patents on a certain drug that as a way to, over different things like different packaging or things like that, or patent thickets, which is similar to that, or pay for delay, where they like try to get a generic to delay coming onto market so that they can keep their prices high. And what the Biden-Harris administration was doing yesterday for the first time ever, because of the Inflation Reduction Act, is allowing Medicare to negotiate directly with these drug companies so that they can lower costs and pass those costs, lower costs onto seniors on the Part D program.
You know, what's really and truly nuts, Tony, is that we had to have legislation to allow for this. I mean, you know, when Bush and the Republicans did their Medicare Reform Act, well, actually, this may go way back before 2000, what is it, 3 or 4 even? When did it become illegal for Medicare to negotiate drug prices? I mean, the military negotiates, VA negotiates drug prices, hospitals negotiate drug prices. Why can't Medicare? Who put that into law, and when?
Well, so if you heard what President Biden said yesterday when he was announcing this was like a piece of legislation that he's been fighting for since the 1970s to get Medicare the ability to negotiate.
So this must go back to the founding of Medicare.
Yeah, right. Well, and I would say specifically though, when the Part D program was created under the Bush administration, the pharmaceutical industry and the Republicans in Congress were able to get a provision in there that it was illegal for Medicare to negotiate. So that became the law that they couldn't do that. Right. And obviously, but this has been something that, like I said, there's been decades that we've been fighting for to get lower costs for seniors, right. Because everyone knows that people are paying too much for prescription drugs, particularly for seniors that are relying on this more and more. So to the extent that, like, that's why I think yesterday was such a breakthrough moment that we were, getting the Inflation Reduction Act passed. This is the first time that, like President Biden said, that it took on Big Pharma and won. They spent $400 million to try to get the Inflation Reduction Act not to pass, and they've been clogging up the courts with lawsuits. They've been doing everything that they can to try to make sure that this doesn't happen. All the while, they're making, huge amounts of profits.
Right. What and using that profit to buy back their own stocks and inflate the salaries for their CEOs and whatnot. One of the big justifications that Big Pharma uses for these absurd prices that they've been charging us and charging Medicare is, and I understand that we pay between 2 and 4 times as much for most prescription drugs, or many prescription drugs, as people in any other developed country of the world. And correct my numbers if I'm off on that. But one of the rationales that they use is that they've got to do this for research and development. My understanding is the federal government pays for most pharmaceutical R&D. Am I wrong?
Well, what we've shown, particularly with the 10 drugs that there was a study that came out that showed that there was like nearly $12 billion of taxpayer money that went into developing a lot of the drugs that were negotiated, just the first 10. Mm-hmm. But one thing that we did look at too in an earlier report that we were looking at at the pharmaceutical industry is, you're right, that they make this claim that lowering drug costs means that we're not going to have research and development, we're not going to have innovation. And what we found is that while there was like $95 billion that the manufacturers spent of the 10 drugs spent on research and development, we actually found that they spent $162 billion on stock buybacks, dividends, CEO salaries, you name it, on like marketing and administrative costs. So this is one of the claims that we see that the pharmaceutical industry and their allies in Congress make all the time. But when we looked at the numbers, that just doesn't hold water.
Yeah, it's just, it's obscene. So where do we go from here? President Biden got this passed in the Inflation Reduction Act. Not one single Republican voted for it in either the House or the Senate. They have sworn, on a stack of Bibles, if Donald Trump gets into office, they're going to repeal it. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think you're right. Like, if you look at like the Project 2025 agenda, like one of the big pieces out there is that they want to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, which this Medicare negotiating power was made possible because of that law. This is something that's really popular with the American people, even though it's been taking decades to get there. If you ask the American people if Medicare should be able to negotiate to lower costs, most people agree with that. I remember the previous administration, President Trump also said that he was open to having Medicare negotiate drug prices. But that obviously didn't happen.
But he never did it.
You're right.
Talk is cheap.
But he talked about that, but President Biden and Vice President Harris actually delivered on it. But I would also say, so the first 10 drugs happened this year, and then there's going to be another 15 drugs the following year, and then there's a series of 20 drugs year after year as we grow the number of drugs that can be directly negotiated. So there's a lot that can be going on just from the passage of this law, but obviously that there's other ways and other proposals that are out there to expand that to more drugs, to expand it to bigger populations, not just those on Medicare. But I think I want to just take the historic moment of this week of this coming into law. What a big deal it is, and just to see that this is happening.
And an opportunity to emphasize how insane it is that when Bush and the Republicans created Medicare Part D, and I believe that was part of the same effort that created Medicare Advantage, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, it was the Medicare Reform Act of 2003 or 2005 or whatever year it was. That, you know, it was a nice program and all that kind of thing, but it was, really a gift to the pharmaceutical industry. But they explicitly said that Medicare, which pays for billions of dollars of drugs a year, cannot negotiate drug prices. There is nothing more anti-competitive, and therefore there is nothing more anti-capitalism, actually, because the foundation of capitalism is competition. Nothing more anti-competitive than that. I mean, this was just pure corruption. The pharmaceutical industry gave the GOP a pile of money, and the GOP gave them this gift.
Well, I was just also, I mean, as you know, and I'm sure as your listeners know, that how deep-pocketed the pharmaceutical industry is. And to the extent that one person can feel like that they can go up against an industry that has that much power. But I think together, like you said, like Medicare is representing tens of millions of people, being able to use that negotiating power to lower costs. I think that is all to the good. And I think it's just a really great thing that this has finally been able to happen. And we're going to see how the savings, the administration announced yesterday that compared to the costs that from this year, if these lower prices were in effect, that Medicare would have saved $6 billion, that would have translated to $1.5 billion in people's pockets directly that are on the program that are using
in copays and things.
So this is money, this is money in people's pocket.
Tony Kark is the executive director of Accountable.us. You can read the report there. Hang on just a second.
To Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
This guy always steps on me. Accountable.us. Tony, thanks so much for dropping by. It's great talking.
Thank you.
Great having you with us. 43 minutes past the hour. Your call's up next on Anything Goes Weekend. Welcome back. Kevin in Union, Oregon. Hey, Kevin, what's on your mind today?
Tom, how are you?
I'm great, but I'll get better, Kevin. What's up?
Good. Always good to hear. Hey, I just wanted to, before I get into my Medicare Advantage thing, wanted to say that before I moved back to the Northwest, I lived in California for 20 years. And whenever you go into one of the smaller taco shops, they ask you, do you want regular tacos or do you want the gringo tacos?
There you go. Okay, thank you, Kevin.
There's nothing racist about it.
No.
It's just a normal thing to ask,
It's a cultural thing, too. It's an experiential thing. When here's a funny story. When my wife and I were young, when Louise was pregnant with our first child, this was 50 years ago, literally, and there was this traveling herbologist, Dr. Christopher, who came to East Lansing, and we took classes from him. And he said, there's this thing you've got to do every day. You take a teaspoon of crushed cayenne pepper powder and a teaspoon of ginseng, and you stir it up in 4 ounces of water, and you chug it down like a shot glass first thing in the morning. And we did that every morning throughout Louise's pregnancy. Our oldest child craves hot food. I mean, she will go into an Indian restaurant or an Ethiopian restaurant, and the cooks will come out and say, who is this white person who's eating all this hot food? I mean, she just eats hot jalapeno peppers raw. And I never seen anything like it because she was exposed to it in utero. So, I think it's, this is not a racial thing. This is an experience thing, But anyway, that's not what you called about, Kevin. What's on your mind?
Yeah, anyway, yeah. I just wanted to ask him, you know who Wendell Potter is, right?
Oh, yeah, he's a friend. He's a good guy. He's got a great newsletter over on Substack, too.
Yeah, that's where I was going to tell you. He wrote an article this last week, I think it was on the 8th, about Medicare Advantage and how the stock market isn't happy with the profits, that they're not making enough. And the title of the article is America's Seniors Are About to Pay a High Price for Wall Street's Growing Disenchantment with Medicare Advantage.
Right. Well,
he's arguing that they're going to start raising their premiums. They're going to start adding more co-pays. There's places in the country where doctors are no longer accepting Medicare Advantage.
Right.
And
well, the other thing that they've already
trying to get back on Medicare is really hard.
Yeah, it is.
Once you're on the Medicare Advantage.
It really is. You've got to shop around and find another, a sleazier Medicare Advantage plan that'll take you. And the thing that they've already started doing, I mean, he documented this. I believe it was Humana. It might have been another company. But in one of his more recent newsletters, Wendell Potter's newsletters over on Substack, they've started just bouncing people off Medicare Advantage programs when they get sick. My recollection, it was like 160,000 people last year that they got a cancer diagnosis or something, and the Medicare Advantage company just said, "Sorry, we're not going to cover you anymore. Good luck. Go find somebody else."
Yeah, and once you get tossed off, you want to go back to regular Medicare, it's hard to get in the Medigap plans.
Yep, you're exactly right, because then they can refuse you. They can't refuse you if you start with a Medigap plan when you turn 65. But if you try to get one later on, after you've been on Medicare Advantage, they can, what's the word? There's a word for figuring out, what you're going to cost them, and they can and they can quote you higher prices or simply refuse to insure you. Kevin, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thanks for all the underwriting. That's what it's called. They can underwrite you.
Underwriting. That's the word.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Kevin. Good talking to you. I got to run. I'm sorry. 47 minutes past the hour. Help support Progressive Radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio, and tag you're it. Republicans all over the country have been doing everything they can to stop people from voting, and the real pioneer in this area has been Georgia and their Governor Brian Kemp. He has been purging people from the voting rolls like crazy. And of course, they use this phony thing of voter fraud. There's voter fraud out there to try to make it much harder to re-register, to register in the first place, or to even vote. I mean, they've mile-long lines to vote and things like that. But now they've got a new scam. They put up a website saying you can delete your voter registration here. Now, who's going to do that? I don't think anybody, but it's there. The only thing is you need to know somebody's social security number to delete their voter registration. So for a whole hour on Monday of the week that they put this thing up, for a whole hour, the entire voting database, all 6 million Georgia voters, including their social security numbers and driver's licenses, was posted publicly on that website. So now anybody can delete votes. There's a whole piece about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
With a message to share, tuning in the voices from everywhere. Got a lot on my mind and I'm ready.
49 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Lowell in Salem, Oregon. Hey, Lowell, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I wanted to get your take on the recent Supreme Court decision and the reason for the split on the liberal justices over the opioid decision. Because Kagan and Sotomayor voted with the minority, which was to protect the Sackler family from further lawsuits, whereas Ketanji Brown Jackson voted in favor in the majority, which I never thought I'd agree with Gorsuch on anything.
Yeah.
But so why would they have split like that?
I don't know, Lowell. I'm really sorry. That's one of the few news events and Supreme Court decisions that's come down that I haven't done my homework on. I haven't read the decision, and I haven't read anything, really thoughtful about the decision. It kind of just slid by on a busy news day. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's on Friday, June 28th in the New York Times.
Yeah.
If you can go back and look at that.
Yeah, I will try to this weekend. You've aroused my curiosity.
Yeah, it's a little puzzling because I want a strong consumer advocate on the Supreme Court, not these people who keep protecting corporate shills.
Yeah.
So, I want someone like Ralph Nader on the Supreme Court.
Me too.
Who will actually, defend consumers, because we have nothing.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. In fact, I think in the entire history of the Supreme Court, there have only been 3 or 4 people who were ever, lawyers for average people. Mostly it's been corporate lawyers and government lawyers.
Right, and that's why some of us kind of had a little bit of a thing about Merrick Garland, because wasn't he defending drug companies?
Yeah, he was another corporate lawyer
during part of his career, which is like, come on, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'll have to look it up, Lowell. I'm sorry, I'm ignorant about this one.
Oh, sure, and if you could talk about it at some point, that would be great.
I will try to see what I can find. Thank you, Linda in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. Hey, Linda, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I'm in Hoffman Estates, just outside of Chicago. And one of my questions is there any way us fans from Chicago can meet up with you while you're in Chicago? Because I can't get into the convention.
On Friday of next week, we're going to be doing, Stephanie Miller and I will both be doing our shows from a diner in Chicago, and that's being put on by WCPT. I'm pretty sure that the tickets are all sold out, though. The other thing, though, is that in October, I will be coming back to town, and I will be doing a book signing at the Frugal Muse bookstore in Darien, which is another suburb. I'm not sure where it is relative to Hoffman Estates.
That's not far from me. What is it, Frugal? What is the
Frugal
bookstore?
Muse.
Frugal Muse.
Muse, M-U-S-E.
Oh. M-U-S-E.
And if you call them up, they can, I don't know if they're going to sell tickets or if it's just going to be, open seating or whatever.
I'd love to meet you.
Yeah, but I'll be there and I'll be signing books. I've got a new book coming out, The Hidden History of American Democracy. It comes out in late September, early October. And that's the book I'll be signing.
Can I make one other comment?
Sure.
Can I make one other comment? I saw Joe Biden, and he is a great man. He is for country over his personal thing.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to see something really great about him, I'm sure you thought, you can do it on YouTube or whatever. Watch what he spoke at the LBJ library, and he talked about what he still wants to do, and it's about above the immunity law and about the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And doing a code of conduct, but on the conduct. But at the very end, he talks about how he got into politics and how he was with a really good firm, moving up, and they asked him to run for something, and how he gave up that to get into politics, and how his first wife said to him, "Get in it or get out of it, but do what you want," kind of. It's really, it made me choke up.
Yeah.
Because he told how he got into it for the real purpose of what real service is.
And then after he won the election, his wife and daughter and maybe a son, too, were all killed in a car accident.
Yeah, were killed. Yep. Yeah. But, I mean, he's a real patriot.
He is.
When Trump talks about the word patriot to these January 6th things, I don't know how it doesn't.
That's a joke.
Him.
And he's a real man, too. He's a gentleman.
Yeah,
he's a gentleman. Linda, I have to move along. I want to get another call in here before the break. Thank you very much. Kevin in Des Moines, Washington. I'm sorry. Kevin, what's on your mind today?
Yes. Before I get to my nightmare, remind Greg Palast that we have training slaves in this country. Only it's not racial slaves, it's economic slaves. It's called the draft. That So anyway, my nightmare is anthrax attack on 20 or 25 post offices at the end of October. That the post office
to shut down mail-in ballots, you mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Well over $1 billion putting in the biohazard detection system, and it detects anthrax. And if you can attack 20 or 25 mail-in state ballot post offices that would just throw everything into disarray.
It might. On the other hand, that might be that might necessitate a declaration of an emergency and moving the date back a day or two or something like that. But
oh,
you know,
God,
it is.
I hope so.
Yeah, it is. They'll deal with it, Kevin. I'm not panicked. Kevin, thanks for the call. Mark in Wilson, North Carolina. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Fine. What's on your mind?
Good, good. So I wanted to just, I'm a little miffed right now, but I just wanted to run something by you because I'm in Raleigh and, you know, I just went over to check out I wanted to go to the event that, you know, that Kamala Harris is at today over in Raleigh. And, you know, I drove an hour and a half to get over there. And I get there and, like, there's like a bunch of tables like setting up, and I just figured that they're probably taking names for volunteers or whatever. And they asked me if I was on the list. And I was like, what list? And they're like, well, you have to be registered for this event.
Right.
And I said, oh, I didn't know that. Did you send something out or whatever? And they're like, no, it's basically a private event, and we have to run a background check on everybody.
Right. This is a new requirement of the Secret Service. I don't know how new it is, but the Secret Service requires that anybody coming into any of these events has to be vetted. It's like going through an airport.
Right. So which is cool. Yeah, which is cool. But the thing is that he didn't say that. The volunteer that turned me away basically was, well, you understand or whatever. But anyway, what missed me was the people that were in back of me. This lady shows up, and she was on the list, but her kids were not on the list.
Oh no!
And they were like, oh, and then they just shooed them through.
Oh yeah, well they're kids. I mean, they're probably not sharpshooters. Mark, I got to run. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're miffed, but you know, we're all adults here. We'll get over it.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
I want you to imagine a world where the truth is a rare commodity, a world where the voices of the people are drowned out by the deafening roar of corporate interests. That's the world we inch closer to every day as the free press falls deeper into the hands of the morbidly rich. You won't see criticisms of money and politics on the corporate media. Democracy becomes impossible when the flow of information is controlled by those who see the world through the lens of profit. When the stories that matter most are buried and twisted, how can we make informed decisions? How can we vote with confidence in the integrity of our choices when the truth is hidden from us? But there's still hope. There are still places where truth isn't a commodity, where the voices that challenge the status quo can be heard loud and clear. Free Speech TV is one of those places. It's a beacon of light in an increasingly dark media landscape, a platform where people like me, Stephanie Millers, Randy Rhodes, and so many others can speak truth to power without the shackles of corporate influence. Here, we don't have to bend our words to suit the interests of the wealthy. We don't have to sugarcoat the reality or shy away from the hard truths. We can tell you what you need to know because we aren't tied to the whims of corporate advertisers. But here's the thing. Free Speech TV isn't just a platform. It's a movement. It's a lifeline for democracy, and it relies on you, we the people, to keep it alive. We don't have billionaires backing us. We don't have corporate sponsors dictating our content. What we have is you. Your support is what allows us to continue doing what we do, and your donations are what keep the truth flowing, unfiltered, and unafraid. And that's why I'm asking you today, right now, to consider what your support means. I'm asking you to take action right now. Go to freespeech.org/donate or give us a call at 877-378-8669 and make your contribution. Think about what it would mean if Free Speech TV wasn't here, if there was no independent media left to counter the narratives being pushed by corporate giants. If you're angry about the way things are going, if you're frustrated by the lack of real, honest reporting in mainstream media, then now is the time to act. We can't afford to wait. We can't afford to sit back and hope that somebody else will do it. It's up to us, all of us, to come together and support the media that supports us. Call 877-378-8669. While you're making your donation today, I want to do something a little different. Normally, we take this time to uplift you with the inspiring words of people like John Kennedy or Franklin Roosevelt. But today, I want to show you something else. I want to show you what America could look like if we don't stand up for independent media. I want to show you the future that corporate media is pushing us towards, especially if they succeed in helping someone like Donald Trump return to power.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
I want to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall. I want to build the wall. I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is there has to be some form of punishment.
Talking about Gitmo, right? Guantanamo Bay, which by the way, we are keeping open. I approve waterboarding. You bet your ass I'd approve it. You bet your ass. In a heartbeat. And I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding. I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay? If that ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS, okay? He's the founder. He founded ISIS. And I would say the co-founder would be crooked Hillary Clinton. I love the old days. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Oh, throw them the hell out of here. Am I allowed to rip that whistle out of the mouth? I'd rip that. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
That's a famous Mussolini quote. You retweeted it. You like the quote? Did you know it was Mussolini?
It's okay to know it's Mussolini. Look, Mussolini was Mussolini. It's okay to. It's a very good quote. It's a very interesting quote.
Reporter, now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. In a rigged election. This is a rigged election.
That you will absolutely accept the result of this election.
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time.
Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit
what
to
I'm
that
saying
principle?
is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists?
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
This is the corporate media's vision of America, a place where the truth is whatever they say it is, where the powerful stay powerful and where the rest of us are left in the dark. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can fight back. We can support the media that refuses to be bought, the media that refuses to be silenced. So please, take a moment to think about what's at stake. Take a moment to consider the role you play in this fight. Because without you, there is no Free Speech TV. Without you, the words of truth and justice are at risk of being silenced forever. This is our moment to stand up, to speak out, and to ensure that the truth remains free and accessible.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to Hour 3 here of Anything Goes Weekend. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, and Donald Trump is very worried about the fate and future of American healthcare. He is so concerned that yesterday he came out and he said if Kamala Harris wins, then everybody gets healthcare. Oh my God. I mean, this is deadly stuff. He was speaking at his Bedminster Wife Cemetery, and kind of rambling about all kinds of weird stuff and Fruit Loops, and which was perfectly appropriate. But he got into this thing about how if everybody has health care, that's communism. Now, tell that to the Canadians or the Germans or the French or the Dutch or the Brits or the Danish, the Danes or the Swedes or the Norwegians or the Lithuanians or Latvians or Estonians or whatever, the Greeks, whatever other countries, the Taiwanese, the South Koreans, the Japanese, the Costa Ricans. Costa Rica has a free national health care system and free college. I don't think any of them consider their systems communist. But this is what Donald Trump said yesterday when he was speaking at his roach-infested golf motel that he's converted into a wife cemetery to get a tax break. He said, she's co-sponsored legislation to abolish very popular private health insurance, which 150 million Americans rely on, dumping everyone into inferior socialist government-run healthcare systems with rationing and deadly wait times while massively raising your taxes. She also wants to take away your private health care. You're all going to be thrown into a communist system. You're going to be thrown into a system where everybody gets health care. Oh, the agony. This is the best he's got. Now, there's a subtext to this. I wrote a book about this. It's called The Hidden History of American Healthcare. And, back in the 1890s, this young man named Friedrich Hoffmann, came from Germany to the United States. He was really good with numbers. And he traveled around the United States warning people about health insurance, or about the German system, rather. At that time, Bismarck, in the 1880s, I think it was 1888, Bismarck put a single-payer national health care system into place in Germany. It was the world's first. And so Friedrich Hoffmann comes over here and starts, warning, don't do this, because there was a big movement to do this here in the United States in the 1880s, 1890s, early 1900s. Teddy Roosevelt talked about it. Harry Truman actually proposed it. That was in the 1940s. So Hoffmann ended up down in Georgia, where he met this Southern belle who he fell in love with and married. And her family was from a long line of plantation owners, as in slave plantations. And so he kind of changed the focus of his pitch. He wrote a book that was published in 1897 or 1898. I have a copy of it, actually. I bought a copy for research when I was writing The Hidden History of American Healthcare. And his book is called Race Traits of the American Negro. And his book uses statistics. He was a statistician, and a very good one, by the way. He also wrote the first book, which is still in print. You can find it on Amazon, about how there's an association between eating processed food and getting cancer. And it's like a 700-page book, his book on cancer. It's a really good book. The guy knows how to work with numbers, but he didn't understand logic. So what he did was he looked at the health outcomes of people based on their race, and he found that black people were dying a whole lot younger and a whole lot faster than white people were, and he assumed that was because of the biology of being black. Well, you know, the biology of being black is the same as the biology of being white. The only difference between black people and white people is that black people have more melanin, more pigment in their skin, and and typically their hair is a little different, and some facial features. But this is not. None of this has to do with biology. And so black people are not inherently more or less likely to die than white people, but they certainly did in the 1880s and 1890s. And the reason why is very simple: they were denied health care. White racism, pure and simple. But Frederick Hoffman, being married to a white racist and living in Georgia and having come out of a very racist society in Germany. I mean, this was kind of the early days of anti-Semitism. There was anti-Jewish racism, but still. So he wrote this book, and then he became the vice president of the Prudential Insurance Company. Now, at the time, they were just selling life insurance. This was in the 1910s, 1920s. And but there was this big movement in the 1910s and 20s to have a national healthcare system in the United States. And in response to that, the insurance companies, and Prudential was one of the leaders in this, moved into the health insurance field. And so Frederick Hoffman traveled around the country. He testified before the U.S. Congress twice. He testified in multiple state houses. He wrote op-eds for newspapers. He was written about in the New York Times. And his argument was that because blacks are genetically inferior, which was the conclusion he came to as a result of the higher death rates, if America was simply to deny black people health care for a couple of generations, the black race would die out, and it would solve the race problem in America. This was his brilliant contribution to American culture and politics. And it was widely adopted. The Prudential charged a higher insurance rate for black people than white people right up until it got banned in the 1960s. I mean, that was the power of Frederick Hoffman. There's several chapters about him in my book, The Hidden History of American Healthcare, if you really want to get the whole story. And the most recent manifestation of this came in 1965, 66, when Lyndon Johnson hired Robert Ball to write the Medicare law. And the original, and Robert Ball talks about this was going to be a system for people over 65 that was designed to be able to every year drop the eligibility age by a decade so that over a 6 or 7 year period, every American would be covered by Medicare. It was designed to eventually become a single-payer healthcare system, because Medicare is a single-payer healthcare system. And they rolled this thing out in 66, and the Southern race, who were then mostly Democrats, the Strom Thurmonds of the world, who all after 65, they became Republicans, but they hadn't yet done that. They mostly changed their party affiliation in 66, 67, 68. So these Southern racist senators came in and said, we will filibuster this. We will kill Medicare if you do not put a barrier to low-income people using it, knowing that the really, truly poor people in the South were black. And so the compromise that LBJ had to make in order to get this thing passed at all was a 20% hole, a 20% gap in insurance coverage for, certain things, certain procedures, doctors, hospitals, whatever. And so that's why you have to, if you have Medicare, you have to buy a Medigap policy that fills in that 20% hole. I mean, you don't have to, but it's probably a good idea. But the reason was because they figured that if you had to pay 20%, and they could set it so you had to pay it up front, that black people wouldn't be able to afford that in the South, and therefore they would not show up in the whites-only hospitals, which Medicare required them to desegregate. Medicare was actually the biggest and most successful desegregation program in the history of the world, because it explicitly outlawed racial segregation. But they put that 20% gap in there figuring, you know, if you can't afford the 20%, you're not going to show up at the doctor's office, you're not going to show up in the hospital, and it'll keep black people out. So the most recent version of this, of course, is Donald Trump saying if we give everybody health care, that means black people get it too. Poor people get it too. You know, this is the Republicans, they're willing to sacrifice poor white people in Appalachia just to keep down poor black people in the South. And, well, not just in the South, but in red states all over the country, but particularly the South, where there's large black populations. So now you know the rest of the story. And this is, you know, like I said, Donald Trump yesterday said, and I quote, "You're all going to be thrown into a communist system. You're going to be thrown into a system where everybody gets health care." Gee, you might have to go to a hospital where there's black people. Oh, my God. You know who Donald Trump's talking to when he's saying that. 16 minutes past the hour. It's Anything Goes Weekend. What's on your mind? I'll pick up your calls right after this.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Exposing the con in conservative. I'll be right back with you. Welcome back. Serena in Los Angeles. Hey, Serena, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, third-time caller, long-time 20-year listener.
Thank you.
You were talking about, I just want to go back to Donald Trump talking about healthcare. Meanwhile, the guy's never, ever had to even think about where money comes from.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
The concept to think that, yeah, exactly, the concept to think about that you never have to think about where your money comes from ever and have to worry about your rent or food, that it's just there.
Mm-hmm.
The things that we could achieve, and I'm talking about way more than Donald Trump ever did with his $400 million, you know, gift from his father.
Yeah, $1 billion in today's money, by the way.
Exactly. So I just want to touch on a couple things that I've heard you talk about before. Tom, I think that every week, maybe on Friday, or you should talk about your knowledge of the Second Amendment. Because I think that the more and more that's out in the ether, and I think other people like Midas Touch and David Pacman and everybody else that's on the progressive side should pick it up and reiterate, because you know about the copious notes of the framers of the Constitution.
Sure. And the constitutional
talk about it plenty of times.
Yeah, the various state ratifying conventions.
We didn't have a standing army.
Yep.
We were attacked from the north, from Canada, and that you know, the Second Amendment was already in place prior to that, and then we had to have a standing army because we couldn't take care of ourselves.
Yeah, that was half of it. The other half was the southern states wanted to preserve their slave patrols because those were their militias.
Exactly. Another thing is that when we say Dixiecrats, we need to say conservative Dixiecrats, because that's what they were.
Yeah, they were. They were hardcore conservatives.
Okay, and the thing is, the problem with us as Democrats is that we need to stop talking about Democrat, Republican. We need to start saying liberal, conservative, because the problem is that Abe Lincoln was a liberal.
Yeah, there were liberal Republicans in the 1960s.
Exactly. I mean, Abe Lincoln was one.
Yeah.
You know, so when they call us libtards, yeah, just like Abe Lincoln. That's my comeback.
There you go.
The other thing is, sorry, Tom, I listen to you all the time, so I know a lot of your things that you talk about. But one thing that really struck home with me, I'm going to go into, sorry, I know I'm hitting a lot of topics, and I know you only have limited time, but the authoritarianism of police officers. And it was from a guy that traveled around with the police back in the 70s or 80s from Ithaca College, a professor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
I don't.
Well, what he said is that it wasn't so much that the police are racist and shooting people; it was that they were authoritarians.
All right. How dare you question my authority? Yeah.
Exactly. How dare you question my authority? And they'd shoot them. Like within 3 minutes, they were dead.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so much the racists that were shooting people; it was authoritarians, and that's why that lets us understand how is it that African American or a cops of minority would show up and shoot their own race, and it was more about you do as I say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I've heard others suggest that or say that. For example,
there was a topic.
One of the cops who killed George Floyd was not white.
Yeah, exactly. But I heard this from you actually a couple years back.
Okay.
The study out of Ithaca College from a professor, and he would travel around with police officers, and he said the problem was authoritarianism, not really racism.
Yeah. Although I'm suspecting that there's a big element of both, depending.
I know you're cutting off, but listen, asylum, when he hears asylum, Donald Trump, when he hears asylum, he hears insane asylum. He doesn't know the difference.
There you go. Okay, Sarita, brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks for the call. It's 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls here. It's Anything Goes Weekend. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com.
Quiet of the night by the soft moonlight, a chorus of pods and hearts so bright. We gather around, our voices strong, singing for justice all night long. Ladies for Kamala, we stand tall. With our feline friends, we answer the call.
It's Cat Ladies for Kamala, yes indeed. Ron in Liverpool, Pennsylvania. Hey Ron, what's on your mind today?
You and your crew do great work, Tom.
Thank you.
I did this once on my own, just being curious. I added up the last 5 tax cuts for the rich, going all the way back to Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
It adds up to damn near our whole debt.
You're right. You're absolutely right. In fact, actually, it adds up to more than our national debt if you aggregate Reagan.
Imagine not having a debt.
Yeah. Well, when Reagan came into office, the national debt was $0.8 trillion. It was 0.8 of $1 trillion. It was $800 billion.
I know. But I never hear this on TV. Nobody ever mentions it.
Yeah.
And one other point, his record on the border is not nearly as good as he pretends it is.
No, he didn't. He didn't build his wall.
Factcheck.org. If you'll check factcheck.org, Trump's final numbers, you'll find out Obama was much better on the border.
Well, Obama deported a whole lot more people than Trump did.
I know.
I mean, they called him the deporter-in-chief. A lot of people were unhappy with him.
No, and Republicans pretend like he let them back in after that.
Yeah, I know. And there's fewer border crossings now than there were at any time during the Trump presidency.
I know, and that, Fox News don't mention that.
No, never.
That was my only point.
Okay, well, good ones, Ron. Thank you very much for the call. Appreciate it, and thanks for watching us on Free Speech. Daryl in Bainbridge Island, Washington. Hey, Daryl, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I wanted to talk about a film made in 1983 starring one of our favorite actors. I'm having a brain fart here, excuse me. You've used that word before, so I'm going to use it now.
It's a good phrase.
Burt Lancaster.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
A rude, cold Houston millionaire that sends his aide to Aberdeen, Scotland, to build a golf course. He shows up briefly. Most of the scenes are in his corporate offices in Houston, but he shows up and he just treats people like caca. And
this movie called Local Hero?
This film was done by Bill Forsyth in 1983. I saw it. I interviewed Mr. Forsyth because I was a film critic at that time, and we didn't talk about it because I hadn't seen it at the film thing. So in 2005, our man Donald Trump shows up at Aberdeen, Scotland, very close to where this film was filmed. 1,400 acres he buys. He's rude to everybody. He's rude to the construction people, and he's just particularly PO'd with the these people that have lived there for generations. They're plain farm people, curious what's going to go on there.
Right, they wanted a berm built, as I recall, around his property, so they didn't have to look at it. Am I remembering correctly?
Well, he brought in bulldozers and he pushed up walls so they couldn't see it.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
he
the
built
end
it.
of my story. What a turd.
Yeah,
Can we use that one too?
I think so. Judiciously. Daryl, thank you for
Hey, Tom, real quick. 20 years ago, I'm a 20-year veteran of your show. I love it. And I used to take my little camcorder and take the TV out in a nice sunny day, so I had contrast, and it turned out pretty well. And I've got about 30 or 40 year shows that I've never watched because I'm too busy watching this show right now.
Wow. Well, good.
And other things. If you want them, next time you come to Seattle, I'll pack them down to you.
Are these 20-year-old shows you're saying?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Next time you come to Seattle, when do you do a book signing up here or something?
You know, I don't know. I've got a book coming out this fall, but I think the only book signing I'm doing is in Chicago. But, feel free to drop me a note, Daryl. I'd love to see those. I don't have any recordings or records of the early years of the show.
Your website.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, you can find my email address without much trouble.
Okay, then we'll send them to Mark so that I don't stalk you, right?
Okay, that works too. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Daryl. Good talking to you. Let's see, how much time do we have? Oh, we've only got 25 seconds. It's not fair to bring somebody on with just 25 seconds. I do want to emphasize how weird it is, and I think weird is the word, that Donald Trump is telling us that if we get Kamala Harris, then everybody gets health care, and that's going to be a really, really bad thing. It's really? I mean, if anything, that's a quote from him that probably the Harris campaign should start promoting. Anyhow, it's Anything Goes Weekend. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's 27 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Speaking the truths that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance would really rather you just never heard. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
This is the place where despair is not an option. We'll be right back. I want you to imagine a world where the truth is a rare commodity, a world where the voices of the people are drowned out by the deafening roar of corporate interests. That's the world we inch closer to every day as the free press falls deeper into the hands of the morbidly rich. You won't see criticisms of money and politics on the corporate media. Democracy becomes impossible when the flow of information is controlled by those who see the world through the lens of profit. When the stories that matter most are buried and twisted, how can we make informed decisions? How can we vote with confidence in the integrity of our choices when the truth is hidden from us? But there's still hope. There are still places where truth isn't a commodity, where the voices that challenge the status quo can be heard loud and clear. Free Speech TV is one of those places. It's a beacon of light in an increasingly dark media landscape, a platform where people like me, Stephanie Millers, Randy Rhodes, and so many others can speak truth to power without the shackles of corporate influence. Here, we don't have to bend our words to suit the interests of the wealthy. We don't have to sugarcoat the reality or shy away from the hard truths. We can tell you what you need to know because we aren't tied to the whims of corporate advertisers. But here's the thing. Free Speech TV isn't just a platform. It's a movement. It's a lifeline for democracy, and it relies on you, we the people, to keep it alive. We don't have billionaires backing us. We don't have corporate sponsors dictating our content. What we have is you. Your support is what allows us to continue doing what we do. And your donations are what keep the truth flowing, unfiltered, and unafraid. And that's why I'm asking you today, right now, to consider what your support means. I'm asking you to take action right now. Go to freespeech.org/donate or give us a call at 877-378-8669 and make your contribution. Think about what it would mean if Free Speech TV wasn't here, if there was no independent media left to counter the narratives being pushed by corporate giants. If you're angry about the way things are going, if you're frustrated by the lack of real, honest reporting in mainstream media, then now is the time to act. We can't afford to wait. We can't afford to sit back and hope that somebody else will do it. It's up to us, all of us, to come together and support the media that supports us. Call 877-378-8669. While you're making your donation today, I want to do something a little different. Normally, we take this time to uplift you with the inspiring words of people like John Kennedy or Franklin Roosevelt. But today, I want to show you something else. I want to show you what America could look like if we don't stand up for independent media. I want to show you the future that corporate media is pushing us towards, especially if they succeed in helping someone like Donald Trump return to power.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
I want to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall.
I want to build the wall.
I don't like losers.
But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is there has to be some form of punishment.
Talking about Gitmo, right? Guantanamo Bay, which, by the way, we are keeping open. I approve waterboarding. You bet your ass I'd approve it. You bet your ass. In a heartbeat. And I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding. I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay? If that ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS, okay? He's the founder. He founded ISIS. And I would say the co-founder would be crooked Hillary Clinton. I love the old days. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Oh, throw them the hell out of here. Am I allowed to rip that whistle out of the mouth? I'd rip that. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
That's a famous Mussolini quote. You retweeted it. Do you like the quote? Did you know it was Mussolini?
It's okay to know it's Mussolini. Look, Mussolini was Mussolini. It's okay to. It's a very good quote. It's a very interesting quote.
Reporter, now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. In a rigged election. This is a rigged election.
That you will absolutely accept the result of this election.
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time.
Are you saying you're not prepared now to
What
commit
I'm
to that
saying
principle?
is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists?
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
This is the corporate media's vision of America, a place where the truth is whatever they say it is, where the powerful stay powerful and where the rest of us are left in the dark. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can fight back. We can support the media that refuses to be bought, the media that refuses to be silenced. So please, take a moment to think about what's at stake. Take a moment to consider the role you play in this fight. Because without you, there is no free speech TV. Without you, the words of truth and justice are at risk of being silenced forever. This is our moment to stand up, to speak out, and to ensure that the truth remains free and accessible. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. Everybody's all excited about how Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are doing so well in the polls, and there's so much energy around the Democratic candidacy, and that's great. And we need to keep that up. And Trump seems to be going down in flames, the fat Elvis phase of his life or his career. But it's important to realize that over $6 billion has been raised so far in dark money from mostly right-wing billionaires and big corporations, and none of it has been spent yet. September, October, it's coming. There's a tsunami of dark money coming, and we need to get ready for it. And the big way to get ready for it is to double down on registering people to vote, phone banking, sending out postcards, talking to neighbors and friends, getting the word out. Because it's gonna come down to people. It's gonna come down to people power. There's a whole article about this called "Will Democracy Survive the Tsunami of Dark Right-Wing Money Coming This Fall" over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. 25 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Anything Goes Weekend. Bob in Farnham, Virginia. Hey, Bob, what's up?
Hello, my friend. I have a TV in my workshop and get to enjoy your program almost daily.
Oh, great.
And I see it on DirecTV.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you often have readings from the Black Panthers. And I remember we're about the same age. I graduated high school in 70. And in my senior year, I wanted to make up some extra credits. And I came from a northern New Jersey upper middle class white community with very, very few black families. And I happened to have in high school a black history teacher. It was the first black teacher that I had in my upbringing. And I decided that I also was reading Soul on Ice with Eldridge Cleaver and Seize the Time. And, you know, it was a very idealistic time for us back then. And there was I don't know if I should call it an office or a headquarters or a barracks, but in Newark, there was a Black Panthers headquarters that I found out about.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I wanted to see what's going on, you know. It was just so strange what I was experiencing around me being idealistic too. So I drove down there and knocked on their door, and it was quite an experience. I don't recall, I didn't come away with things that were said to me that were memorable. It was more just oh my God. They were in a brownstone in a heavily populated neighborhood. And walking in, there were barred windows, and on the inside there were sandbags up behind the windows and shotguns at every window.
Whoa!
And it was just eye-opening and, you know, an experience I'll never forget. And you know, you were just reading about Medicare and the racism there, and seeing what's going on now. And today, we just haven't learned anything in so many years.
Yeah,
seems like we're almost back in that same period again.
Yeah, back in '68, I think, maybe '69, Louise was a teenager, and she and you know no longer living at home, and she spent I think it was most of the summer of that year living in the Black Panther house on Harrison Road in East Lansing, and which was an interesting experience for her. She often talks about it. But it was nothing like that. It was not, you know, it was a bunch of mostly black college students, and they were very involved in politics at MSU. I mean, this is right across the street, just 3 blocks down the street from MSU. Sorry?
I said, I guess it wasn't the militant arm, it was the people, the community that were supportive of them.
Yeah, apparently, but you know, she learned an awful lot about race relations, you know, from that experience.
This
Still
like
talks about it.
Into an army.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. Bob, thanks for the call. Jeff in Portland. Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind today?
Hey, happy Friday. As always, it's cool to see you on the Bell show last weekend.
Thank you, Jeff.
He did an excellent weekend show. And a while back, he had Michael Moore on, too. And Ellie told Michael he had a message from his father that Ellie's father wanted Michael to know that he had just had major heart surgery in Toronto, and the only bill he got was the parking for the hospital parking.
Yeah.
And,
Jeff, I'm sorry, you're breaking up so badly. I'm having a hard time hearing you. Let me put you on hold, and we'll come back to you. And let me see if I can, you know, this problem, again, we had this day before yesterday around the same time, and I'm thinking we have a Comcast problem. Comcast provides our internet service, and when it gets flaky, these kind of things happen. But let me see if Bobby in La Puente, California. Hey, Bobby, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're sounding fine. So what's up, Bobby?
Okay, I had a tune in my head. Moving on up, keep on pushing. You don't want me to sing. Anyway, Bill Confidence, Harrison Waltz, the guy Waltz, he lives in his heart. That's where he comes from. Not the head, but the heart. When I first heard him speak, that's the man. Because, you know, I survived survivalists, and I don't trust a lot of people. Anyway, with that, I thank you and Louise for the School of Truth. I don't miss a day. Not like I used to go to school. I used to ditch. Now I'm getting an education from you, and greetings to your callers as well. I appreciate it. Anyway, when I called about the Medicare, something about a vaccine, a lady was concerned about paying for vaccines. We don't pay anything.
Yeah, I don't pay anything either. And this is a shingles vaccine. I'm wondering if she was on Medicare Advantage, although I'm pretty sure she said she's not. So I don't know why Medicare did not pay for her shingles vaccine. It certainly paid for mine and Louise's.
Well, I don't get mine. I'm always get vaccine. The only vaccine I got was the COVID. Never had the flu in my life. Maybe I shouldn't be too cocky for shingles. I don't know. I've been somehow good.
Yeah, now you're breaking up, Bobby.
So,
yeah.
that's too bad. All right,
okay, thanks a lot, Bobby. Good talking to you. Best to Vivian. We'll continue trying here. Again, I'm not sure exactly where this problem is. Mark in San Francisco. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Tom, I wanted to talk about Project 2025, and I think something that needs to be discussed more is that you have to take a military exam if you are in a government-funded school. And I think young people need to understand what this could mean to their future, whether or not they're going to be in the military or have a green energy job. I think this needs to be discussed a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, Project 2025 and the whole military service issue, and again, your phone was breaking up, Mark, but and my apologies. I'm pretty sure this is happening on our end. But Project 25 is so multidimensional. I mean, basically, it is, somebody called yesterday and pointed this out. It's like a return to the David Koch 1980 campaign. In fact, I think I've got the summary of that around here someplace. It was a return to the 1980 David Koch campaign where, he basically was saying, we don't want basically any functional stuff going on in the United States. And, what they're going to do specifically with the military, I don't recall. Did you have a specific concern around that?
Well, just that the young people will have to take this exam, and that's really the road to another draft by the Republicans. And if Trump gets in office, he'll send him to Iran. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, Mark, thank you very much for that. Mike in Elyria, Ohio. Hey, Mike, what's up? Mike? I cannot hear Mike at all. Hopefully our phone system is not just collapsing. The people to reach out to, Sean, I think are the people at the company that provides, that. Okay, you've got that under control. John in Seattle. Hey, John, let's try this. What's up?
Camera one. I hope I'm not breaking up. My gosh. Am I sure fine? I'm not breaking up?
You are, but if you talk slowly and softly, I think I can probably understand what you're saying.
Okay. Slow and soft is my mode of operation. I'm really curious about Trump's remarks on going to Venezuela, and you're right to keep bringing that up. I think it makes a lot of questions with me, not only taking his passport or his plane, but think of it this way. He's got Secret Service around him all the time. If he is evading prosecution, wouldn't they be obligated to place him under arrest or prevent him from fleeing? And
I don't think so, because they're not technically law enforcement. It's a protective service as opposed to a track down criminals service.
Well, one of your guests. I mean, I think we could probably ask one of your guests who is knowledgeable of the law questions about that. I mean, would Secret Service go with him? Could they go with him? Things like that, I think, are just really intriguing. And the other funny thing, he was saying, well, Venezuela is a lot safer. Venezuela, I used to live there. It's got one of the highest crime rates in the world in terms of violent crime. It's horrible.
Well, he's thinking about living in one of those. I've been to Venezuela. There just like all over South America, there are these very affluent neighborhoods that are surrounded by 12-foot fences with barbed wire, and they've got guys with AR-15s or AK-47s constantly patrolling them.
The other thing to think of, remember in 2020, there was an attempted coup there, and some of the people involved, were some like ex-Green Berets and such.
Yeah.
And Trump's fingerprints were all over that. So why on earth would Maduro want Trump there, except maybe to trick him and then come in and put him under arrest?
Oh, wouldn't that be sweet? Talk about poetic justice. John, thank you for the call. It's 14 minutes before the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, picking up your calls. We'll be back with more as we try to figure out why these phone lines are breaking up. My apologies. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's Anything Goes Weekend. And welcome back. Let's see how the phones are doing now. Eileen in Sarasota, Florida. Hey, Eileen, what's up?
Well, it's not Sarasota. It's Fort White, Florida, okay. North Florida.
I'll fix that.
That's okay, hon. I wanted to give you some good news.
Okay.
Last year, there was signs Trump in 2024 all over the Alachua County, Columbia County, all over the place, on people's fences and telephone poles. Mm-hmm. And I was driving around the counties this year, and so far they're all gone. And There was only one sign that I saw. It was a big one, but one sign I saw for Trump in 2024. And I came home and told my husband, and I went, John, that is good news.
Yeah.
At least I think it is good news.
Yeah, well, there's two possible explanations. One is that there's a loss of enthusiasm for Trump, which I would think probably is a big factor. The other possibility is I'm hearing and reading that Trump is sucking so much money out of the RNC and out of his own campaign to pay for his lawyers' fees and also to pay himself. He's apparently making a commission on a lot of his fundraising, that there's no money left over for things like yard signs at Republican offices. So it may be that the signs are just not available. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You'd have to fact check that. But.
I don't know. These are on, private property, on people's fences and on their houses and all over the place. Like I said, you just don't see them anymore.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Well, that's good. That's
so I thought that was good news, and I wanted to let you know, because here in Florida, I would call this area kind of Trump Central for the last 4 years. So I took it as a good sign, and I wanted to let you know.
I'll take it. It's a good one. Thank you very much. Jeff in Portland, you want to try it again?
Yeah. How's this, Tom? Is it a little better?
Seems to be working fine.
Okay, great. I was just saying, it was great. It was cool seeing you on Allie's show on the weekend, last weekend. And I saw him interview Michael Moore a few weeks ago, and he told Michael that Allie's father had a message for Michael, that Ollie's father had just had major heart surgery in Toronto, and the only bill he received was for the parking at the hospital.
Yeah, I saw that.
And, okay, yeah. And, as Bernie continues to point out, the Canadian government pays half of what we pay for health care, yet they have better health outcomes, and the average Canadian lives longer than the average American.
That's right.
And Tom, I'm looking forward to hearing what VP Harris is going to say today about the affordable housing crisis. Building 3 million new homes, that sounds like a good start. I think we need closer to 7 million in the near future. And Robert Reich wrote this week that there's a bill in Congress that would ban hedge funds and private equity firms from owning single-family homes, and hopefully the campaign will endorse that bill too. But, finally, Tom, whether it's building new housing or investing in renewable energy projects, which will create millions of green new union jobs, the Fed's high interest rates are sandbagging any efforts to that end. So should the campaign cause a ruckus about this? I know the administration can't, but what about her campaign? What do you think?
I'm not sure it would have any effect. It might even provoke the Fed to say, you know, we're not going to do it because you told us to. I don't know the politics of that, Jeff, frankly. I'm sorry.
I know Trump is bullying.
I know. And he might be being successful, too. Nobody knows. Jeff, I got to run. Thanks. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us.
In the heart of our hometown, where the streets are bustling around, we gather beneath the morning sun. Together we can get things done. Every voice, every hand, together we can make a stand. Tag your it, let's join the fight for our future, for our
Tag your it. 9 minutes before the hour, picking up your calls here. Gordon in Stamford, Connecticut. Hey, Gordon, what's up?
Yes, Tom, I had an idea of how we could try and find the non-voters.
Okay.
These people that don't listen to right-wing hate radio and they don't watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to have billboards, roving billboards. We should flood the battleground states with roving billboards where
You mean like on the side of
people can
trucks?
see. Yes, on side of trucks. And what you do is you park in a big intersection there, and you have a public opinion taker who can watch the people that see the billboards and ask them questions. And
I
we
wonder
can get
if-
feedback on whether the billboards work.
Yeah, I wonder if it would be possible to approach any of the big trucking companies and just buy advertising space on the side of their trucks. I've never seen that done, but it might be real interesting.
We could also just have private people do it instead of writing postcards. They can just we supply them with the billboards, and they can supply the car. You know, electric vehicle won't cost them much.
Sure.
And they just drive around.
Yeah, fascinating idea, Gordon. Thank you very much for that. That's a good one. Mark in Columbia, South Carolina. Hey, Mark, what's on your mind today?
VP Harris is on right now talking about her policy speech. Anyways, I wanted to ask a quick question about Social Security as it relates to the federal deficit. Didn't I read somewhere that the Social Security fund is no way connected to the federal deficit?
That's
It's
correct.
like
In
its
fact,
own,
the Social Security
its own
Trust Fund
entity.
has got $2.5 trillion in it right now.
Yeah, and it just seems like, I think I read somewhere where the Republicans have been raiding it, or maybe more than one presidential.
No, this is rhetorical sleight of hand, and it's from the people who want to bankrupt Social Security or want to privatize it and hand it over to the big banks. And the pitch goes something like this: government has been borrowing from Social Security for years and years, and eventually they're going to borrow all the money from Social Security. There'll be nothing left.
Yeah.
Well, here's the reality. The reality is the Social Security is sitting on a $2.5 trillion surplus right now. And what do you do with a $2.5 trillion surplus? You invest it, right? I mean, you want it to become a $2.7 trillion surplus. So what they do is they buy Treasury bonds. Treasury bonds, which pay interest. Right now they're paying like 4 or 5% interest. And so so the Social Security buys, and it's a special type of Treasury bond that can be redeemed at any time, and that is kind of out of the boundaries of the normal Treasury bonds. It was created by an act of Congress back in the 80s. And so because a Treasury bond technically is an IOU, it's money that you are loaning the government that eventually they have to pay you back, it is not totally wrong, it's not a complete lie to say that the Social Security is loaning money to the federal government, or the federal government is borrowing money from Social Security. But it's BS. it's just a lie. I mean, it's spin, I guess you'd say. Mark, I want to get another call in here. Thank you for the call. FM in South Hadley, Massachusetts, listening to WHNP. Hey, FM, what's up?
Well, I'm severely depressed because it seems to me that we're closer to World War III than ever before.
I think not. I think that if Putin had been given Ukraine, as Donald Trump is advocating, that we would be very close to World War III, because then he'd be looking at the NATO nations. He'd be looking at Poland and probably Lithuania or Latvia. and maybe
well,
even Estonia.
I'm not interested in Trump's solutions because, he's the wrong person.
Yeah.
But it just seems to me that Zelensky has changed the whole game because he has done what was previously considered unthinkable.
Yeah.
He has invaded Russia.
Yeah, no, and I think it's great because Russia invaded him first. That's what you do. We invaded Germany after Germany invaded the rest of the world.
Now when you're dealing with a nuclear superpower.
Yeah, you can do it when you're dealing with a nuclear superpower. They're not gonna do it. FM, chill out. It's gonna be good. Judy in Daytona, Florida. Hey, Judy, what's on your mind today? Judy? You're on the air?
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Judy.
Yes.
I have 20 seconds.
I have a question for you. Do you anticipate MAGA to attempt to sabotage the Democratic convention with
I doubt it.
False flag instigators?
I doubt it. I think that there will probably be some of the pro-Putin lefties who will be in there, but I doubt MAGA is going to have any influence. Special thanks to Louise Hartman, Sean Taylor, Nate Atwell, Jamie Holly, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick Hoyt, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jay LeBlanc, Jeremy Peterson, Connor Arroyo, Carna Verity, Martha Salinas, and Mark Thoman, all the great people who work on this program. And thank you to you for listening, watching, participating, calling. Don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. Have a wonderful weekend. And I'll be back with you on Monday live from Chicago at the DNC. We'll see you then.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
I want you to imagine a world where the truth is a rare commodity, a world where the voices of the people are drowned out by the deafening roar of corporate interests. That's the world we inch closer to every day as the free press falls deeper into the hands of the morbidly rich. You won't see criticisms of money and politics on the corporate media. Democracy becomes impossible when the flow of information is controlled by those who see the world through the lens of profit. When the stories that matter most are buried and twisted, how can we make informed decisions? How can we vote with confidence in the integrity of our choices when the truth is hidden from us? But there's still hope. There are still places where truth isn't a commodity, where the voices that challenge the status quo can be heard loud and clear. Free Speech TV is one of those places. It's a beacon of light in an increasingly dark media landscape, a platform where people like me, Stephanie Millers, Randy Rhodes, and so many others can speak truth to power without the shackles of corporate influence. Here, we don't have to bend our words to suit the interests of the wealthy. We don't have to sugarcoat the reality or shy away from the hard truths. We can tell you what you need to know because we aren't tied to the whims of corporate advertisers. But here's the thing. Free Speech TV isn't just a platform. It's a movement. It's a lifeline for democracy, and it relies on you, we the people, to keep it alive. We don't have billionaires backing us. We don't have corporate sponsors dictating our content. What we have is you. Your support is what allows us to continue doing what we do. And your donations are what keep the truth flowing, unfiltered, and unafraid. And that's why I'm asking you today, right now, to consider what your support means. I'm asking you to take action right now. Go to freespeech.org/donate or give us a call at 877-378-8669 and make your contribution. Think about what it would mean if Free Speech TV wasn't here, if there was no independent media left to counter the narratives being pushed by corporate giants. If you're angry about the way things are going, if you're frustrated by the lack of real, honest reporting in mainstream media, then now is the time to act. We can't afford to wait. We can't afford to sit back and hope that somebody else will do it. It's up to us, all of us, to come together and support the media that supports us. Call 877-378-8669. While you're making your donation today, I want to do something a little different. Normally, we take this time to uplift you with the inspiring words of people like John Kennedy or Franklin Roosevelt. But today, I want to show you something else. I want to show you what America could look like if we don't stand up for independent media. I want to show you the future that corporate media is pushing us towards, especially if they succeed in helping someone like Donald Trump return to power.
When Mexico sends its people They're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
I want to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall.
I want to build the wall.
I don't like losers.
But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is there has to be some form of punishment.
Talking about Gitmo, right? Guantanamo Bay, which, by the way, we are keeping open. I approve waterboarding. You bet your ass I'd approve it. You bet your ass. In a heartbeat.
And I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding.
I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay? If that ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS, okay? He's the founder. He founded ISIS. And I would say the co-founder would be crooked Hillary Clinton. I love the old days. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Oh, throw them the hell out of here. Am I allowed to rip that whistle out of the mouth? I'd rip that.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
That's a famous Mussolini quote. You retweeted it. Do you like the quote? Did you know it was Mussolini?
It's okay to know it's Mussolini. Look, Mussolini was Mussolini. It's okay to. It's a very good quote. It's a very interesting quote.
Reporter, now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. In a rigged election. This is a rigged election.
That you will absolutely accept the result of this election.
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time.
Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit
What
to
I'm
that
saying
principle?
is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists?
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
This is the corporate media's vision of America, a place where the truth is whatever they say it is, where the powerful stay powerful and where the rest of us are left in the dark. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can fight back. We can support the media that refuses to be bought, the media that refuses to be silenced. So please, take a moment to think about what's at stake. Take a moment to consider the role you play in this fight. Because without you, there is no free speech TV. Without you, the words of truth and justice are at risk of being silenced forever. This is our moment to stand up, to speak out, and to ensure that the truth remains free and accessible.